I'm married and 33 years old. My husband David and I have been married for 10 years, and we have a first-grade daughter named Betty. We're a family of 3. I've loved drawing since I was a kid, and now I work in the arts. I'm also pregnant with our second child, and each day gets harder as my belly grows. Even though David is very busy, he tries to come home early and helps with chores and taking care of our daughter. Life was good until something recently started bothering me. We live on the first floor of a high-rise apartment building. The other day, while coming back from shopping, I saw a woman moving into our building. It turned out to be Emma, a classmate from middle school. I hadn't seen her since then. When she saw me, she was surprised and asked if I lived there too. I said yes, and she told me she was moving in. Emma's face changed when she realized I was living in the same building as her. She was shocked that a high school dropout like me lived in the first-floor apartment. She seemed to take pleasure in the fact that I was on the first floor, while she was on the 35th floor. She bragged about how her apartment had great views and how she was starting her own business, using the apartment as both her home and office. She asked me about my job, and I told her I worked in art. Emma was dismissive and acted like drawing wasn't a real job. I felt hurt, so I told her that I had turned something I love into a career. Emma didn't seem impressed and suggested that I must be making very little money, like $900 a month. Just then, David and our daughter Betty came by. Emma looked them over and said something rude about David's work clothes and our income. I felt insulted and finally snapped at her, but she just kept being disrespectful and condescending. Finally, I'd had enough of Emma's rudeness. I told her she needed to apologize for what she said about my husband. Emma just laughed and asked why she should apologize. Then she noticed my pregnancy and commented that it must be tough financially with another child on the way. She questioned if we could even afford to live in our apartment. I didn't want to hear any more of Emma's nasty comments, so I grabbed David and Betty and went home. Emma called after us, inviting us to visit her on the 35th floor for a better view, but I ignored her. I couldn't stop feeling angry at Emma all day. That night, after Betty went to sleep, David asked what happened. I told him how Emma had made fun of me for dropping out of school and belittled my work. David was furious. He knew about my past and had chosen to marry me knowing who I am. We decided to avoid Emma for a while. Fortunately, we didn't run into Emma for a month, which allowed us to live peacefully. Then, one day we received an invitation to a school reunion. I was excited to catch up with my old friends, even though I was a bit worried about running into Emma again. But since I wanted to see my friends, I decided to go. The reunion was held in a hotel ballroom. As soon as I arrived, I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. We had a great time catching up, talking about our families and careers. But then, out of nowhere, we heard Emma's voice behind us, saying something rude about being around poor people. As expected, she was still the same. Emma showed up at the reunion too, but we didn't notice her at first because we were focused on talking with our close friends. Emma was wearing heavy makeup and a flashy dress that seemed out of place. She had always been self-centered and made awkward comments back in middle school, so we weren't surprised to see she hadn't changed. We rolled our eyes when she arrived. One of my friends finally spoke up and asked Emma who she was calling poor. Emma replied, "Who else but Mary? She's a dropout, so she must be poor and lives on the first floor. I live on the 35th floor. So it's like a master-servant relationship." Emma laughed after saying this, and some friends were upset and confronted her, but she didn't seem sorry at all. Emma kept making rude comments, suggesting I should move to a cheaper apartment if I didn't want to be caught poor. She even told me to leave the reunion, since I supposedly earned only $900 a month. My friends were confused and asked if I really only made $900 a month. I explained that's just what Emma believes. Emma then interrupted and said I was only working a part-time job because of being a dropout. While she was a CEO, a male classmate spoke up and said, "Emma, don't you know Mary is a well-known artist?" Emma looked puzzled and asked, "An artist? Who cares?" I decided to clear things up with Emma. not wanting her arrogance to ruin the reunion. I told her that I had studied art in France right after middle school and didn't complete a formal program. So yes, I dropped out. Emma scoffed and said, "Studying art is just a hobby, not a real job. You're still a dropout who ran away from studying." Emma clearly didn't understand. I decided to explain more about my work. I told Emma that I had spent years training and now run an art gallery while also creating my own artwork. I have fans and have even held my own exhibitions. Some of our classmates have bought my art. After training in France, I returned to New York and started my art career, which has become successful in recent years. David and I met at one of my exhibitions, and we clicked, which led to our marriage. Even with all this, Emma still didn't seem to understand. She said, "An exhibition is just for fun. I'm clearly the winner here because I'm a CEO." I was frustrated and told her that this wasn't about winning or losing. I take my art seriously, even if she doesn't see it that way. Emma then asked why we live on the first floor if I'm making so much money. I explained that we used to live on a higher floor, but since I'm pregnant and elevators can't be slow, we moved to the first floor for convenience. Emma didn't seem to accept my explanation. My friends and even some classmates knew about my career as an artist, but Emma probably didn't consider it because she had no interest in art and looked down on me for being a dropout. I was about to share another detail when I saw David and Betty at the entrance. Betty was running towards me, with David following behind and looking a bit embarrassed. David apologized, saying he got caught up with work and brought Betty along. Emma then noticed David's sharp suit and asked why he was dressed up when he was in work clothes last time she saw him. David greeted my friends, thanking them for being kind to me and asking if there was anything they needed. Just then, the reunion organizer rushed over to thank us for providing the venue. He praised the food and drinks, saying everything was excellent. David's parents owned the hotel, and David, now the CEO, had generously offered it for free. Emma's face turned pale when she heard this. I dropped out of middle school and only have a high school diploma, which seems a bit unusual. There's a reason for it, but we live in different worlds. She had looked down on me as poor, but here I was as an artist and the wife of a CEO. Emma was shocked and asked why a dropout like me was married to someone so important while she, an elite, was still single. She seemed bitter and challenged me on how I managed it. David finally noticed Emma and said, "Oh, we've met before. Sorry for being in work clothes last time. I was helping with a neighborhood cleanup. As the owner of the high-rise, it's important to maintain good relations in the community." Emma's face went white. "Wait, you own that high-rise?" she asked. David explained that his family had been wealthy for generations, involved in hotel management and owning many properties, including the high-rise where we live. David then invited Emma to visit the penthouse, which has a great view of the Empire State Building. Emma was stunned again and asked why we lived on the first floor if we had a penthouse. I explained that, because I'm pregnant, we moved to the first floor for convenience, but both the penthouse and the first floor are ours. Emma was speechless and looked like she couldn't believe it. Seeing the reaction from our friends and feeling that I had ruined the reunion's atmosphere, I decided to leave with David and Betty. As we were leaving, Emma muttered something rude about a dropout being so cocky. I turned to Betty and said, "What matters most is what's inside. Never look down on people." Betty cheerfully added, "Emma, if you keep making faces like that, happiness will run away from you." Everyone laughed, and the mood of the reunion improved. Emma, now embarrassed, quickly left. The reunion continued on a positive note. I enjoyed the rest of the evening with my friends, who also had bad experiences with Emma. Betty's comment had made everyone feel better. Months went by, and we didn't see Emma at the high-rise again. One day, David came home and told me that Emma had finally moved out. She hadn't paid rent for 3 months, and we had to get a lawyer to issue an eviction notice. Emma left town quickly after that. David said Emma had left the apartment exactly as it was. Furniture and clothes were still there. She took her expensive items and computer, but left everything else behind. At first, I was suspicious, but a friend updated me on Emma's situation. It turns out she had been pretending to be successful but was actually jobless. She had some savings from her career, but couldn't keep up her lifestyle and fell behind on rent. She had no other place to go, so she left her belongings because she couldn't afford to get rid of them. I was disgusted to learn that Emma was still a burden to others. Even in her crisis, her terrible personality meant she had no friends or colleagues to help her. Now she's living in a rundown apartment and struggling with part-time jobs. She used to brag about being an elite and looked down on me as a dropout. I'm sure her pride is shattered now. I hope she learns to live a more humble and honest life. As for me, I'm happy with my life. I continue to paint, spend time with my husband and daughter, and look forward to our new baby. Our family of 3 gets along wonderfully, and I'm excited about expanding our family. I'll keep doing everything I can to protect our happiness.
The day I handed my parents the final mortgage payment, I thought I was giving them freedom. Instead, I handed them a weapon they'd use against me for the next 5 years of my life. I'm Sarah, 32, and until recently, I was that daughter. You know the type. The one who'd sacrifice everything to make her parents proud. The one who'd work 60-hour weeks as a paralegal to help them keep their house. The one who thought family meant something sacred. Honey, we have wonderful news. Mom's voice crackled through my phone speaker that Friday evening. Your father and I have been thinking. I should have recognized the sugary tone. It was the same one she used when I was 16 and she'd borrowed my first paycheck to pay for my brother's baseball camp. We've found the perfect tenant for the house, she continued. Such a lovely young woman, June. She's paying well above market rate. My fingers froze over the case file I'd been reviewing. Wait, you're renting out the house? The one I just spent 3 years paying off? Oh, darling, it's such a smart investment move, Dad chimed in from their extension. And since you have that spare room in your place... The weight of their words hit me like a brick. You want to move in with me? Just temporarily. Mum's voice rose an octave. 3 months tops. We thought it would be lovely to spend more time with you. I glanced around my carefully curated apartment, my sanctuary after long days at the firm. The spare room was my home office where I handled overflow casework, where I built my career piece by piece. When? I managed to ask. Well, June moves in next Tuesday, so... Next Tuesday? My voice cracked. That's 4 days from now. We knew you'd understand, sweetheart. You've always been our rock. Dad's tone carried that familiar note of authority that brooked no argument. Besides, after everything we've done for you... The guilt trip. Right on schedule. I ended the call feeling numb, memories flooding back. Mom pawning my college fund savings bonds for a family emergency that turned out to be a cruise. Dad insisting I skip my dream internship to help renovate their basement, always taking, always expecting, always wrapping their demands in the cloak of parental love. That night I couldn't sleep. I dug through my filing cabinet until I found it, the folder labelled Parents' Mortgage. 3 years of overtime slips, declined vacation requests, the promotion I'd turned down because it would have meant less flexible hours for making their payments. My phone buzzed, a text from Brooke, my closest friend at the firm. Drinks, you sound stressed. At the bar, I showed her the mortgage statements. I thought I was helping them retire peacefully. Instead, they're turning their house into an income property and invading mine. Brooke's eyes narrowed. Have you checked their bank statements recently? The ones you helped them set up online banking for? I hadn't. When I got home, I logged into their account. They'd never bothered changing the password I'd set up. What I found made my blood run cold. Regular deposits from June Rodriguez, dating back 3 months. They'd been planning this. They'd signed the lease long before their spontaneous announcement. My phone buzzed again. Mum, honey, we're thinking of bringing our bedroom set. Your guest room furniture is a bit basic. You don't mind, do you? I stared at the message, then at the bank statement, then at the framed photo on my wall. the three of us smiling after I'd handed them the final mortgage cheque. Mum's arms around me, Dad's proud beam. All lies. Another text from Mum. Also, Edmund Jr. might need to store some things in your garage, just temporarily. You know how your brother is with transitions. I felt something shift inside me. A lifetime of compliance cracked like thin ice. I opened my laptop and started typing. Dear June Rodriguez, I hope this email finds you well. I'm Sarah, the daughter of your new landlords. The reply came within minutes. Sarah, your parents told me so much about you. They mentioned you're letting them stay with you while they maximize the property's potential. They're so proud of having such a generous daughter. I closed my laptop and walked to my window, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears. 3 years of my life to pay off their house, and they'd turned it into a chess piece in their game of emotional manipulation. But here's the thing about being a paralegal. You learn that every contract has loopholes. Every agreement has weak points. And sometimes the most devastating revenge isn't served hot or cold. It's served with a notarized letter. Living with my parents was like watching a slow-motion home invasion, except the invaders came armed with guilt trips instead of guns. Sarah, honey, these organic vegetables are so expensive, Mom said, rifling through my grocery bags. I could get twice as much at the discount store. I bit my tongue and continued chopping onions for dinner. 1 week in, and they'd already rearranged my kitchen cabinets, replaced my shower curtain, and suggested I move my desk to the living room so they could have a proper bedroom setup. And all these prepared meals in your freezer, she continued, clicking her tongue. No wonder you're still single. Men want a woman who can cook from scratch. The knife slipped, nearly catching my finger. I work 50-hour weeks, Mom, sometimes more. Well, if you'd let us help with the rent, instead of insisting on paying everything yourself. I own this place, I reminded her. There is no rent. Dad looked up from his newspaper. About that, Princess. Your mother and I have been thinking... The doorbell cut him off. Through the peephole I saw Oscar, my ex, holding a cardboard box. Just dropping off your old law books, he said when I opened the door. Found them while cleaning out the garage. Mum materialized beside me. Oscar, what a surprise! We were just talking about Sarah's single status. I watched Oscar's face shift from friendly to uncomfortable. Mrs. Olson, good to see you. I didn't know you were staying here. Oh, yes, just temporarily while we rent out our house. You know, the one Sarah helped us pay off. Such a blessing to have a devoted daughter. She patted my arm. Though if someone had made an honest woman of her when they had the chance. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom, I warned, but she was on a roll. I mean, 5 years of dating and not even a proposal. Sarah was devastated, weren't you, honey? She cried for weeks. Oscar's jaw tightened. Actually, Mrs. Olson, Sarah ended things because it wasn't right, I cut in. And that was years ago. Oscar, thanks for the books. I'll text you later. After he left, Mum turned to me. You shouldn't be so cold to him. He was the best prospect you've had. I have to get ready for work, I muttered, grabbing my keys. At the office, Brooke took one look at my face and dragged me into the break room. Spill. I told her about the morning's events, about how they'd commandeered my spare room, about the subtle ways they were trying to reshape my life into their vision. You need to set boundaries, she said, stirring her coffee, before they start thinking your house is their new retirement plan. They're my parents, Brooke. What am I supposed to do? Kick them out? Why not? They kicked you out of your office without blinking. That evening I came home late, hoping they'd be asleep. Instead, I found them in my living room with papers spread across the coffee table. Perfect timing, really, Mom was saying. Sarah's always been responsible with money. If we merge the properties into a family trust... What properties? I asked from the doorway. They jumped, shuffling papers quickly. Just discussing retirement planning, Princess, Dad said smoothly. Nothing for you to worry about. But I'd seen enough. Property deeds, trust documents, my address circled in red ink. That night I lay in bed, listening to them whisper in the next room through the too thin walls. Needs to understand family comes first. Her name's already on the mortgage documents. Just a matter of convincing her. My phone lit up with a text from Oscar. Sorry about today. Your mom hasn't changed. I replied, neither have I. Still fighting the same battles. Remember what you told me when we broke up? I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep others warm. Maybe it's time to follow your own advice. I stared at his message for a long time, remembering why we'd really ended things. Not because of my career, like Mom believed, but because he'd seen how my parents drained me, how I'd learned to make myself small to keep the peace, and he couldn't watch me disappear. Another text came through, this time from Brooke. Check your email. Found some interesting legal precedents about family property disputes, just in case. I opened my laptop, the screen's glow illuminating the dark room. As I read through Brooke's research, something cold and determined settled in my chest. Mum's voice drifted through the wall. Once we're on the deed, we can finally relax. Our Sarah would never let her parents down. They had no idea how wrong they were. We need to talk. I set my coffee mug down hard enough to make them look up from their breakfast. 2 weeks of invasion had pushed me past my breaking point. About what, sweetie? Mom's innocent tone didn't match her sharp eyes. About how long you're planning to stay. And about the trust documents I saw yesterday. Dad folded his newspaper deliberately. Now, princess. Don't princess me. You're trying to add yourselves to my house deed, aren't you? The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Mom's face did that thing where she transformed from sweet maternal figure to wounded martyr in seconds flat. How could you accuse us of such things? Her voice trembled. After everything we've sacrificed for you. Sacrificed? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. I paid off your mortgage. I gave up promotions to help you, and now you're collecting rent on that house while trying to take over mine. Take over? Dad's voice rose. We're your parents. Everything you have is because of us. I have what I have because I worked for it. Mum burst into tears, right on cue. I carried you for 9 months. I gave up my career to raise you, and this is how you repay us. I gripped the edge of the counter. I've been repaying you my entire life. You're being selfish, Dad declared. Family means supporting each other. Your mother and I need security in our golden years. And what about my security, my space, my right to live without... You're right. Mum's tears vanished. Let me tell you about rights, young lady. Everything you are, everything you've achieved, was only possible because of us. Your education. We drove you to school every day. Your job. Who paid for your first suit? Your confidence. Who told you could do anything? Who took my college fund? Who guilted me out of every major life decision? Who... Enough! Dad slammed his hand on the table. We're your parents. We know what's best, and if you can't see that, maybe we raised you wrong. The next few days were arctic. They stopped speaking to me directly, instead having loud conversations about ungrateful children when I was within earshot. They invited their friends over without asking, rearranged my furniture while I was at work, and criticised every aspect of my life in stage whispers. At the office, I couldn't focus. Files blurred before my eyes, deadlines loomed like threats. Luke, my boss, caught me staring blankly at my computer screen. Sarah? He closed my office door. You've been off your game lately. Everything okay? I opened my mouth to say yes, but what came out was a choked sob. Luke listened as I spilled everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. You know, I've been practicing family law for 20 years. Want to know the biggest lesson I've learned? I wiped my eyes. What? Blood doesn't give anyone the right to abuse your boundaries. That evening I came home to find a thick envelope on my kitchen counter. Inside was a letter formally requesting I consider adding my parents to my deed for security and legacy purposes. Mum appeared in the doorway. We had a lawyer friend draw it up, just to make things official. A lawyer friend? I examined the letterhead. It was from a real estate office that had been disbarred 3 years ago. We're not getting any younger, she continued. And really, what else are you going to do with this place? You're not married, no children. We're all you have. The words hit like physical blows, each one calculated to land where I was weakest. But something was different this time. Maybe it was Luke's words, or maybe I'd finally reached my limit. You're wrong, I said quietly. I have myself, and that's enough. Don't be dramatic. Get out. What did you say? I said get out of my kitchen, of my space. You have 30 seconds before I call the police and report trespassers. Dad appeared behind Mum. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone. Try me. They retreated, but I heard them in the guest room talking in urgent whispers. Through the wall came Mom's voice. She'll calm down. She always does. And if she doesn't, well, there are things about Sarah's past that her fancy law firm might find interesting. I sat on my kitchen floor, shaking with rage and fear and something else, something that felt dangerously like freedom. My phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. How'd it go? I typed back, they're threatening to expose my secrets to the firm. Her response was immediate. Good thing we've been documenting everything. Time to show them who they're really dealing with. I looked at the fake legal letter in my hands and made a decision. If they wanted to play with legal documents, I'd show them what a real one looked like. I found my old journals in a box at the back of my closet, hidden behind winter coats and forgotten shoes. The pages smelled like teenage angst and broken trust. October 15th, 2006. Mom borrowed my college application money again. Said it was for Dad's business opportunity. Found out later they bought a timeshare in Florida. March 3rd, 2007. Dad forged my signature on the withdrawal slip for my savings account. Said it was my duty to help family. The account is empty now. Each entry was a punch to the gut, a reminder that their current behaviour wasn't new. It was just the latest verse in a very old song. My phone rang. It was June, their tenant. Sarah, I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Your parents gave me your number for emergencies. Is everything all right with the house? Actually, she hesitated. I overheard something I think you should know. Your parents were here yesterday checking on things. They were talking about how they're going to convince you to sign over your house. My hand tightened on the phone. What exactly did they say? They mentioned something about your soft heart, how you'll eventually give in because you always do. And, she lowered her voice, they're telling everyone they're going to live with you permanently, that you're going to gift them your house in your will. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. A text from Brooke lit up my screen. Emergency wine night? At her apartment, I spread out my evidence. The journals, screenshots of bank statements, photos of the fake legal documents they'd tried to pressure me with. Holy shit, Brooke whispered, flipping through the pages. This is straight up financial abuse. And look at these patterns. They've been doing this for decades. I need to stop them, I said, but they're threatening to reveal my secrets to the firm. Brooke snorted. What secrets? That time you got a speeding ticket? Or when you dated that guy in accounting? They'll make things up. They're good at that. Then we beat them to the punch. She pulled out her laptop. First, we document everything. Then we set up cameras in your house. Legally, of course. And finally, she grinned, we give them enough rope to hang themselves. The next day, I installed security cameras in my common areas and changed all my passwords. That evening, I heard Mom on the phone in their room. Yes, she's being difficult now, but we have ways of handling Sarah. Did I tell you about the time she almost got arrested in college? Of course, that was just a misunderstanding, but imagine if her firm found out. I pulled out my phone and texted Oscar. Remember when my parents told everyone I almost got arrested in college? His reply was quick. You mean when they called the cops because you were late coming home from study group? I was there. Still have the incident report where the officers said your parents were wasting police resources. Another piece of evidence for my growing file. I spent the next few hours updating my will, explicitly excluding them from any inheritance. Then I called June back. There's something else, she said. They're charging me way above market rate, claiming the extra is for family maintenance, but I've seen them brag to neighbours about pocketing the difference. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Already documented everything. I'm a court reporter. It's kind of my thing. That night I heard them in the kitchen, their voices carrying through the vents. Edmund, what if she really doesn't back down this time? She will. Remember when she wanted to study abroad? One little guilt trip about her sick grandmother, and she gave up her scholarship. But she seems different lately, colder. Then we remind her what family loyalty means. I've already drafted a letter to her firm just in case, a concerned father's worry about his daughter's ethical choices. I sat in my darkened living room, listening to them plot my professional destruction over cups of my expensive tea. The same tea Mom had criticised me for buying just that morning. My phone buzzed with messages from my support network. Brooke, documentation all set. Ready when you are. Oscar, found those old police reports, sending them now. June, rental agreement copies and recorded conversations attached. Luke, my door's always open if you need backup. I opened my laptop and began typing. Dear Mr. Harrison, I'm writing to formally request legal representation in a matter of property rights and harassment. The lawyer's response came within minutes. Ms. Olson, given the evidence you've presented, I believe we have a strong case for immediate action. Shall we discuss strategy tomorrow morning? In my guest room, my parents continued plotting, unaware that their weapon of choice, documentation, was about to be turned against them. They'd taught me well about family loyalty. Too well. Now it was time to show them exactly what I'd learned. I've been thinking about what you said, I announced over breakfast, watching their faces light up with predatory hope. About family unity and securing the future. Mum clasped her hands together. Oh, sweetheart, I knew you'd come around. We should celebrate, I continued, keeping my voice honey-sweet. How about a family dinner tomorrow night? I'll cook. Dad beamed. That's my girl. Always knew you'd make the right choice. I spent the next day preparing, but not for dinner. Every conversation was recorded. Every threatening comment. Every manipulation, captured by the hidden cameras Brooke had helped me install. Your mother's making her special casserole, Dad said that evening, watching me chop vegetables. The one you loved as a child. How nice! I didn't mention that I'd hated that casserole, that I'd only eaten it because they'd guilt-tripped me about Mom spending hours in the kitchen. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Mum opened it to find Brooke standing there with a bottle of wine. What's she doing here? Mom's smile turned brittle. I invited her, and a few others, for the celebration. Before they could object, Oscar arrived with dessert. Then June showed up carrying a folder of house maintenance records they'd requested. June! Dad's voice cracked. What a surprise. She's part of the family now, isn't she? I said sweetly. Since she's living in your house. The doorbell rang again. Luke stepped in, followed by Mr. Harrison, the lawyer they didn't know I'd hired. Sarah, Mom hissed, what is this? Family unity, I replied. Isn't that what you wanted? We gathered around my dining room table, the tension thick enough to cut. Mum served her casserole while shooting daggers at my guests. Dad kept clearing his throat, clearly unsure how to manipulate an audience this size. Before we eat, I said, standing, I want to share something special. I pulled out a thick manila envelope. Since we're all here to discuss family property matters, Dad's face reddened. Princess, perhaps this isn't the time. Actually, it's the perfect time. I opened the envelope. I have some documents of my own, but first, why don't you show everyone what you brought? Mum's hand shook as she reached into her purse, producing their fake property transfer papers. We just want to secure our family's future, she said to the table at large. Interesting approach, Mr. Harrison spoke up, adjusting his tie, especially since that letterhead belongs to a disbarred law firm. The colour drained from Dad's face. Who are you? Someone very interested in your creative legal documentation. He turned to June. Ms. Rodriguez, would you mind sharing what you told me about your rental agreement? June pulled out her own folder. The rate is 40% above market value, with the excess allegedly going to family maintenance. I have recordings of Mr. and Mrs. Olson bragging about pocketing the difference. That's a lie! Mum stood up, trembling. Sarah, are you going to let these people attack your parents like this? Like you attacked my career. I played the recording from their kitchen conversation about sending letters to my firm. Luke's face darkened as he listened. We were trying to protect you, Dad insisted, by forging my signature, by emptying my accounts. I spread out photocopies of old bank statements, by threatening my professional reputation. Everything we did was for you. Mom's voice rose hysterically. We gave you life, and I gave you everything else. I nodded to Mr. Harrison, who pulled out another document, including the house you're currently renting out for profit, the house I paid off, the house that, according to these records, you've been collecting rent on for 3 months before your emergency need to move in with me. The silence was deafening. Brooke poured herself more wine, watching with barely concealed satisfaction. Oscar studied his plate, a small smile playing at his lips. Dad reached into his jacket and slammed a final envelope onto the table. Then you leave us no choice. Here's the deed transfer we had drawn up. Your signature is just a formality. Mom, actually, Mr. Harrison interrupted, any property transfer would be void, given the documented pattern of coercion and fraud. In fact, my firm is very interested in reviewing all financial interactions between the parties over the past decade. Mom burst into tears. Dad's face turned purple. But before either could speak, I placed one final document on the table. Don't worry, I said softly. I've taken care of everything. All you have to do is sign. They stared at the eviction notice, their faces a symphony of shock, rage, and disbelief. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. I smiled, thinking of all the times they'd said that before. All the times I'd backed down. Try me. The casserole grew cold as my parents stared at the eviction notice, their faces cycling through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, anger, disbelief, and, finally, their favourite, martyrdom. After everything we've done for you, Mum whispered, her voice trembling, you'd throw your own parents out on the street. Just like you threw me out of my office, my peace, my life. Dad slammed his fist on the table, making the wine glasses rattle. This is outrageous. We're your parents. Exactly, Mr. Harrison interjected smoothly, which makes the pattern of financial exploitation even more concerning. Exploitation, Mom's voice rose an octave. We gave her everything, including unauthorized withdrawals from my accounts. I pulled out my old bank statements. Or the credit card you opened in my name when I was 19. That was for emergencies, Dad protested. Like your golf club membership? June cleared her throat. Should I mention the way you've been overcharging me for rent and claiming it's for property taxes? Stay out of this, Mom snapped. This is family business. Family business? Brooke laughed. Is that what you call fraud these days? Dad stood up, looming over the table. Sarah, if you do this, there's no going back. We'll tell everyone what kind of daughter you really are. You mean a successful paralegal who paid off your mortgage? Luke's quiet voice cut through the tension. Or did you have some other story in mind? She's not the angel you think she is, Mom said, her tears vanishing. Did she tell you about the time she stole money from us? Oscar snorted. You mean when she withdrew her own college fund to pay for your roof repairs? We have proof, Dad threatened, pulling out his phone. Pictures, documents. Fabricated documents, Mr. Harrison corrected. Like the ones you tried to use to claim her house? Would you like to discuss the legal implications of forgery? Mum's face contorted. Sarah, honey, you're not thinking clearly. Let's discuss this privately, just family. Everyone here is family, I said quietly. They're the family I chose, the ones who support me instead of draining me. You ungrateful little... I believe, Mr. Harrison interrupted, the eviction notice requires a response within 48 hours. I suggest you review it carefully. Dad snatched up the document, his hands shaking. This isn't legal. It can't be. Actually, June spoke up, as a court reporter, I can confirm it's perfectly valid. And as your tenant, I can testify about your rental practices if needed. You're all against us, Mom wailed. Our own daughter turning everyone against us. No, I stood up slowly. You did that yourselves. Every manipulation, every guilt trip, every stolen dollar. It was all you. If you do this, Dad's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, we'll make sure your firm knows everything about the money, the men, the straight A student who worked her way through college, Luke cut in, the paralegal who's never missed a deadline. Please tell me more about my best employee. The room fell silent. Mom's mascara ran in black streaks down her face. Dad's hands crumpled the eviction notice. 48 hours, Mr. Harrison reminded them. After that, we proceed with legal action. You can't be serious, Mom pleaded. Where will we go? Back to your house, I suggested. The one I paid for, or is the rental income too important to give up? This isn't over, Dad growled, grabbing his jacket. Come on, Wendy, we know when we're not wanted. But our things, Mom protested. You have 48 hours to collect them, I said, under supervision. They stormed out, Mum's sobs echoing down the hallway. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Silence fell over the dining room. Brooke reached for the wine bottle. Well, that was intense. Are you okay? Oscar asked softly. I looked around the table at my real family, the ones who'd shown up to support me, to witness my liberation, to stand guard against the tsunami of guilt and manipulation. I'm better than okay, I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. They'll try again, Luke warned. People like that don't give up easily. Let them try. Mr. Harrison gathered his papers. We have everything documented. Their next move will only strengthen our case. June raised her glass. To freedom. To boundaries, Brooke added. To chosen family, Oscar said quietly. I lifted my glass, watching the light catch the wine like liquid courage. Through the walls, I could hear my parents arguing in their room, soon to be just another spare room, empty of their presence and their poison. To taking back my life, I whispered, and drank deeply. The next morning I woke to the sound of shattering glass. I rushed to the kitchen to find Mom deliberately dropping my grandmother's china teacups onto the tile floor, one by one. Dad stood by the counter, methodically ripping pages from my law books. Stop! I grabbed my phone, already dialing. What are you doing? Teaching you about family loyalty, Dad snarled, tearing another page. If we can't have your house, Mum said, dropping another cup, you can't have these precious memories either. I hit record on my phone. You realise you're being filmed? They froze, finally noticing the security cameras in the corners. You'd record your own parents? Mum's voice dripped venom. Well, let me give them something worth watching. She grabbed my laptop from the counter. The front door burst open. 2 police officers entered, followed by Mr. Harrison and a security guard. Perfect timing, I said, still recording. They've been here about 3 minutes. Put the laptop down, ma'am, one officer ordered. This is private property, Dad protested. Yes, Mr. Harrison agreed. Ms. Olson's private property, from which you've been legally evicted. Mum clutched the laptop tighter. We're her parents. We have rights. The right to remain silent, the officer suggested, reaching for his handcuffs. Everything else is up for debate. You wouldn't dare arrest us. Dad stepped forward. Sarah, tell them. Tell them about the money you owe us. I played back the kitchen recording from my phone. If we can't have your house, you can't have these precious memories either. Destruction of property, Mr. Harrison noted, combined with the earlier threats, financial fraud, and violation of the eviction notice. Mum's face crumpled. We'll tell everyone what you did, how you abandoned us, how you forged my signature. I pulled out the old bank statements, stole my identity, tried to seize my house. Please, tell everyone. I'm sure the police would love to hear all about it. Officers, Dad tried a different approach. This is just a family misunderstanding. Our daughter is confused. Your daughter, Luke's voice came from the doorway, is one of the sharpest legal minds I know, and you're about to find out exactly how sharp. Mum dropped the laptop onto the counter. You're choosing strangers over your own blood. No, I said quietly. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing myself. The officers moved forward with their handcuffs. Dad's face turned purple. If you do this, he growled, you'll regret it. We know things about you, Sarah, things that would ruin you. Like what? I challenged. The college fund you stole, the credit cards you opened in my name, the fake legal documents you tried to use to steal my house. Please share with the officers. They're very interested in fraud cases. Mum burst into tears, real ones this time, not the performative sobs she usually deployed. We gave you life, and I gave you everything else, but not anymore. The officers led them out, reading their rights. Mum wailed about ungrateful children. Dad threatened lawsuits. But their voices grew fainter, and then the door closed behind them. I stood in my destroyed kitchen, surrounded by broken china and torn books. Luke put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I know, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I just wish that they were different people. He squeezed my shoulder. Some parents don't deserve their children. Mr. Harrison was already on his phone, documenting the damage. We'll add this to the restraining order application. Between this and the financial evidence, they won't be able to come near you or your property again. I picked up a broken teacup handle, the last piece of my grandmother's set. They really thought they could break me by breaking my things. They never understood, Luke said, that you're not your possessions. You're not their possession either. My phone buzzed with a text from June. Police just called. Your parents tried to break into the house here too. Security cameras caught everything, adding it to the evidence file. Another text from Brooke. Just heard, coming over with wine and cleaning supplies, and bubble wrap for anything breakable that survived. And finally from Oscar. You did it. You really did it. Proud of you. I looked around my battlefield of a kitchen, at the broken pieces of my parents' last attempt to control me. They'd tried to shatter my world, not realizing they'd already lost their power to hurt me. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't holding on, it's letting go. I started sweeping up the broken china, each piece a memory I was finally free to leave behind. The doorbell rang as I was hanging the last frame in my home office, the eviction notice mounted beside the restraining order, my own personal declaration of independence. Special delivery, June called through the door, and some interesting news. I let her in, noticing the thick envelope in her hands and the gleam in her eyes. So, she settled onto my couch, guess who tried to rent an apartment in my building yesterday? My stomach tightened. They wouldn't. Oh, they would. Your parents showed up with fake references and everything. The landlord recognized them from the police report I'd shared with management. I poured us both coffee. Where are they staying now? With your cousin Rita, apparently. But here's the best part. June pulled out her phone, showing me a social media post. Rita's already asking around for advice about dealing with difficult house guests who won't leave. The irony made me laugh despite myself. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your father and I are living in squalor because of you. Is this what you wanted, to see your parents suffer? Before I could respond, another text came through from Brooke. Don't answer them. That's what the restraining order is for. Also check your email. I opened my laptop to find an email from Luke. Sarah, in light of your exceptional handling of the Harrison case, the partners have decided to offer you a promotion. Junior associate, effective immediately. P.S. Your parents' anonymous letters to the firm about your questionable character only proved how professional you are under pressure. June read the email over my shoulder and squealed. They tried to ruin your career and accidentally launched it instead. This is better than Netflix. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Oscar carrying a houseplant. Housewarming gift for your new office, since you've reclaimed it and all. Thanks, I said, taking the plant. But you didn't have to. I wanted to. Besides, I heard about Rita's Facebook post, thought you could use a laugh. My phone buzzed again, Rita calling. Sarah, your parents, they're saying some things about you, about money they claim you owe them. I thought I should hear your side. I put the phone on speaker. What exactly are they saying? That you stole their retirement, that you tricked them into signing over their house, that you... Check your email, I interrupted. I'm sending you something. I forwarded her the entire documentation file. Bank statements, forged signatures, police reports, everything. The silence on her end was deafening. Finally, holy shit, they tried to steal your house? Among other things. They've been here 3 days and already borrowed my emergency credit card, Rita said slowly. And Mom mentioned they did the same thing to you in college. Need my lawyer's number? God, yes. After we hung up, Oscar raised an eyebrow. Karma's working overtime on this one. Speaking of karma, June pulled out the envelope she'd brought. Your parents' tenant insurance claim for emotional distress was denied. Apparently, trying to illegally seize property doesn't qualify for compensation. I pinned the denial letter next to the eviction notice. My wall of freedom was complete. Nice gallery, Oscar commented. Most people hang family photos. I do have family photos, I gestured to my desk, where a new frame held a picture from the night of the confrontation. Me surrounded by Brooke, June, Oscar and Luke, all raising our glasses. Just not the kind my parents would understand. My phone buzzed one last time, a final text from Mum. You'll regret choosing strangers over blood. I showed it to June and Oscar. Should I respond? Actually, June grinned, I have a better idea. She took a photo of my wall of documents, then another of my desk photo, and one more of my new office nameplate. Sarah Olson, Junior Associate. Send them these, she said. No words needed. I hit send, then blocked their numbers. You know, Oscar said, adjusting the plant he'd brought, your mom always said you'd never survive without them. But look at you now, thriving. Because she survived them, June corrected, which is way more impressive. I looked around my reclaimed office at the evidence of my liberation mounted on the walls, at the friends who'd become family, at the life I'd built despite, or perhaps because of, everything my parents had tried to take from me. The plant Oscar brought was a peace lily. It would need care and attention to thrive, but unlike the toxic relationships I'd pruned away, this one would actually grow into something beautiful. Want to get dinner? June asked. Rita texted that she's kicking them out tomorrow. We should celebrate. I grabbed my keys, leaving the ghosts of guilt and obligation behind, with the mounted documents on my wall. Some families you're born into, others you build from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. I chose the latter, and I chose right.
The envelope was heavy in my hands, cream-colored and expensive, the kind of paper that whispers promises of good things. My name was written in familiar handwriting, Lucia's looping script that always made me think of our college days, passing notes in the back of lecture halls. I stood on the porch of what should have been my house. My dream house. The one I'd spent 8 years teaching English in Seoul, Bangkok, and Dubai to save for. The one with the blue door and the garden space I'd already mentally filled with herbs and flowers. The one I'd told Lucia about over countless video calls, showing her listings, asking her opinion on neighborhoods while she nodded enthusiastically. "Open it outside," the real estate agent had said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Graham thought you might want a moment." Ms. Graham. Lucia Graham. My best friend for 15 years. I tore open the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. The paper inside was the same heavy stock, folded precisely. "Louisa, I know this will come as a shock. I've purchased the house you were interested in. I want you to know it wasn't planned. When I came to visit the neighborhood last month, I fell in love with it too. When your financing hit that snag, I couldn't bear to see someone else get it. I know you'll understand eventually. This way it stays in the family. We can laugh about this someday, I promise. I've left the keys with Marjorie. The guest room is yours anytime. Love, always. Lucia." The letter crumpled in my fist. My throat tightened as I looked up across the tree-lined street. And there she was. Lucia, standing on the porch of my house, waving like she was welcoming me home. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight, her smile wide and expectant. I forced my face into something resembling normal and waved back, though my hand felt disconnected from my body. "Would you like to go inside?" Marjorie asked, jingling the keys. "Ms. Graham has arranged for the utilities to be on." "No," I said, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. "I think I need some time." "Of course." She handed me the keys with a sympathetic look. "Take all the time you need." I nodded, unable to speak further, and walked back to my rental car. I could feel Lucia watching me, probably waiting for me to turn around, to run across the street and hug her, to tell her it was fine, that I understood. I didn't turn around. In the safety of my car, I let my forehead rest against the steering wheel. The leather was cool against my skin, grounding me as my mind raced through the implications. The financing snag had been minor, a 2-week delay at most. Lucia knew that. She'd known everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucia. "Are you okay? Come over when you're ready. We should talk." I started the car without responding. The drive to my temporary apartment was a blur, my mind replaying every conversation we'd had about the house. How she'd asked to see the listing. How she'd suggested visiting to help me decide. How she'd been so interested in my mortgage broker's name. It wasn't until I was inside my sterile, rented space that I allowed myself to feel the full force of it. I sank to the floor, back against the door, and finally let the tears come. Not just for the house, though that loss cut deep, but for the friendship I now realized had been built on sand. 8 years of saving, of teaching English to corporate executives and their children, of living in tiny apartments and sending money home, of missing funerals and weddings because I couldn't afford the flights. All for that house. My house. My phone buzzed again. And again. I ignored it, watching the notifications pile up. "Louisa, please talk to me." "It's not what you think. I did this for us." I turned my phone off and stared at the blank wall opposite me. The rage building inside me was unfamiliar, hot and clarifying. I'd always been the understanding one, the one who made peace, who saw the best in people, especially in Lucia. Not anymore. I pulled myself up from the floor and moved to the small desk by the window. Rain had started to fall, pattering against the glass in an irregular rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I opened my laptop and began to type. First, I needed information. About the sale, about property laws, about Lucia's finances, about the neighborhood committee she'd mentioned was so exclusive, about the interior designer, Iris something, she'd bragged about hiring. Then I needed a plan. Because Lucia was right about one thing. This house was going to stay in the family. Just not her family. I opened a new document and titled it, "Getting My House Back." My fingers hovered over the keyboard for just a moment before I began to type, each keystroke a tiny act of war. By the time the rain stopped, I had the beginnings of a strategy. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't nice. But then, neither was betrayal. I finally turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and a voicemail from Lucia, her voice artificially bright. "Lou, I know you're upset, but when you calm down, you'll see this is for the best. Call me when you're ready to be adults about this. Love you." I deleted the voicemail and opened my contacts. It was time to make some calls of my own. Rain pounded against my apartment window as I stared at my phone. 3 days since I discovered Lucia's betrayal, and the calls hadn't stopped. Friends asking why I wasn't returning her messages. Mutual acquaintances wondering if we were still on for dinner next week. As if my world hadn't just imploded, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Iris Mitchell. The interior designer Lucia had bragged about hiring. The one with the waiting list a mile long. The one who'd transformed the homes of local celebrities and tech executives. My finger hovered over the call button. This was crossing a line. But then again, so was stealing your best friend's dream house. I pressed call. Iris Mitchell Design. The voice was crisp, professional. "Hi, I'd like to speak with Iris, please. It's about the Graham property on Maple Street." A pause. "May I ask who's calling?" I took a deep breath. "Louisa Carter. I'm a close friend of Lucia's." Another pause. "One moment." My heart hammered as I waited. This was either going to work or blow up spectacularly. "This is Iris." The voice was warmer now, curious. "Hi, Iris. I'm calling about the house on Maple Street. Lucia suggested I reach out to you directly about some of the design elements we've been discussing." "Oh," surprise colored her voice. "Lucia didn't mention a consultant." I laughed lightly, the sound almost convincing. "That's Lucia for you, always forgetting the details. We've been planning this house for years, actually. I just got back from overseas." "I see." Iris's tone shifted slightly. "Well, we're still in the preliminary stages. Perhaps we could meet to discuss your input. I have time tomorrow afternoon." "Perfect. Your office at 2? See you then." I ended the call and let out the breath I'd been holding. Step 1. Infiltrate. My hands shook as I wrote the appointment in my planner. This wasn't me, scheming, lying. But the alternative was accepting defeat, and I'd spent too many years fighting for this dream. My phone buzzed with a text from Aiden. "How are you holding up?" Aiden, my rock through every crisis since college. The one person who knew exactly how much the house meant to me. "Not great. Can you meet for coffee?" His response was immediate. "Corner cafe. 30 Mint." The cafe was busy with the afternoon crowd, but Aiden had secured our usual corner table. He stood when he saw me, his tall frame unfolding as he pulled me into a hug. "You look terrible," he said, but his eyes were kind. "Thanks." I managed a weak smile as I slid into my seat. "That's exactly what a girl wants to hear." He pushed a mug toward me. "Already ordered your usual." The familiar scent of chai tea rose in a comforting cloud. "You're a lifesaver." "So?" he said after I'd taken a few sips. "What's the plan?" I raised an eyebrow. "Who says I have a plan? I've known you for 12 years, Lou. You always have a plan." I sighed and leaned forward. "I'm meeting with her interior designer tomorrow, pretending to be a consultant." Aiden's eyes widened. "That's bold." "It's just the beginning." I pulled out my notebook and slid it across the table. "I've been doing research." He flipped through the pages, his expression growing more concerned with each turn. "Lou, some of this is... looking into zoning violations is one thing, but hacking her email? Not hacking," I corrected. "Eric from IT said he could help me recover some of our old conversations, ones where she specifically acknowledged the house was my dream, not hers." "And what exactly will that prove?" I stared into my tea. "I don't know yet, but it's something." Aiden closed the notebook. "Have you tried just talking to her? Maybe there's an explanation. An explanation for buying the house out from under me?" My voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. She knew what she was doing, Aiden. This wasn't a misunderstanding. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm on your side. Always. I just don't want to see you become someone you're not because of this. Maybe I need to become someone else, I said quietly. Someone who doesn't get walked all over. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Iris. Something's come up. Need to reschedule our meeting. Also, Lucia mentioned you might be reaching out. Said there was some confusion about the property. Let's clear that up when we meet. My stomach dropped. She knows. Who knows what? Aiden asked. I showed him the text. Lucia must have called her. She's on to me. Aiden squeezed my hand. So, change tactics. You don't need to be sneaky about this. Don't I? I pulled my hand away. Because being honest and straightforward has worked so well for me so far. As if on cue, the cafe door opened and Lucia walked in. She was wearing a cream-colored coat I'd helped her pick out last winter, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She scanned the room, and when her eyes landed on our table, her face lit up with that familiar smile, the one that had always made me feel like the most important person in her world. Lou! She called, weaving between tables toward us. Thank God! I've been trying to reach you for days. I felt Aiden tense beside me, ready to intervene if needed. But this was my battle. I've been busy, I said, my voice steady despite the rage boiling just beneath the surface. House hunting, her smile faltered. About that, we really need to talk. Do we? I stood, gathering my things. Because I think you've said everything that matters in that letter. Lou, please! The house was everything to me, Lucia. You knew that. She reached for my arm. That's why I did it. I couldn't let you make such a huge mistake. The foundation is cracked, Lou. The inspection report. I froze. What inspection report? Something flickered across her face. Triumph? Relief? The one you never bothered to read. That's what I've been trying to tell you. What inspection report? I repeated, my voice hollow. Lucia pulled a folded document from her purse and placed it on the table between us. The paper was creased from multiple readings, coffee-stained at one corner. The one your inspector filed 3 weeks ago, she said. The one that shows the foundation is compromised. The one that estimates repairs at nearly $100,000. I stared at the document, my name clearly printed at the top. I never saw this. Your real estate agent was supposed to give it to you. Lucia's voice softened. When I realized you were still moving forward, I knew you hadn't seen it. I couldn't let you sink your life savings into a money pit. Aiden reached for the report, scanning it with a frown. This looks legitimate, Lou. My head was spinning. So you bought a house with a cracked foundation? That makes no sense. I have the money to fix it. You don't. Lucia slid into the chair across from me. I was trying to protect you. By going behind my back? The words tasted bitter. By not telling me what you found? I tried. I called you the day I saw this. You were in Dubai, remember? The connection was terrible, and you were so excited about finalizing the deal. She sighed. I made a split-second decision. Maybe it was wrong, but my intentions. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. The cafe seemed too small suddenly, the air too thick. I needed to think, and I couldn't do it with Lucia's earnest eyes on me, with Aiden's concerned glances. I need to verify this, I said finally. I need to talk to my agent. Of course. Lucia nodded eagerly. And then we can figure this out together. The house can still be yours eventually. Maybe we co-own until the repairs are done, or... I said I need to verify it. I stood abruptly. Aiden, can you... I'll drive you home, he said, understanding immediately. Lucia reached for my hand. Lou, please don't shut me out. Not again. Again. The word hung between us, heavy with history. The 6 months after my mother died, when I disappeared into grief, ignoring her calls. The year in Seoul, when I'd been too busy building my new life to maintain our weekly video chats. I'll call you, I said, not meeting her eyes. After I talked to my agent. Marjorie's office was exactly what you'd expect from a successful real estate agent. Tasteful, expensive, designed to convey trust and competence. She greeted me with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Louisa, what a lovely surprise." "Not really a surprise," I said, placing the inspection report on her desk. "I called and made an appointment." Her eyes flicked to the document, then back to my face. "What can I help you with today? You can explain why I never saw this report. The one that shows the house I was about to buy needs $100,000 in foundation repairs." Marjorie's smile didn't waver. "I sent that report to you 3 weeks ago, by email and certified mail." "I never received either." "Well, that's concerning." She turned to her computer, tapping keys with manicured nails. "Let me check. Yes, here's the email, sent on the 15th. And I have confirmation the letter was delivered to your apartment building on the 17th. My apartment building, where packages routinely disappeared, where the mail system was notoriously unreliable. "Show me the email," I demanded. She turned the screen toward me. There it was, sent to my personal email, not the work address I'd been using for all our communications. "You sent it to the wrong email," I said, my voice tight. "We've been using my work email for everything." A flicker of genuine concern crossed her face. I'm so sorry. I must have used the address from your initial inquiry." "And you never followed up? Never called to confirm I'd received it? For a report this serious?" Marjorie's professional veneer cracked slightly. "I assumed when you continued with the purchase that you decided to handle the repairs yourself. Many buyers do." "Many buyers with an extra $100,000 lying around?" I laughed bitterly. "Did Lucia Graham see this report?" Her hesitation told me everything. "How?" I pressed. "How did she get access to my inspection report?" Marjorie shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Graham is a long-time client. When she expressed interest in the property, I may have mentioned the inspection findings. In general terms, of course." "In general terms," I repeated. "And then she made an all-cash offer, knowing I'd hit a financing delay. I can't discuss another client's transaction details." I stood, gathering the report. "You won't have to. I'll be filing a complaint with the Real Estate Commission. Expect to hear from them." I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd learned. Marjorie had screwed up. The house really did have serious issues. And Lucia had still gone behind my back, had still made decisions about my life without consulting me, had still taken something that was mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Aiden. "Any news?" I started typing, then stopped. What could I say? That Lucia might have been trying to help? That I'd spent days plotting revenge against someone who thought she was protecting me? Another text came through, this one from Lucia. "Whatever Marjorie told you, remember she's covering her own mistakes. Call me when you're ready to talk about solutions." Solutions? As if this were a simple problem to solve, not a fundamental breach of trust. I started the car and headed toward the one place I needed to see for myself. The house on Maple Street. My house. Lucia's house. The house with the cracked foundation. As I turned onto the street, I spotted a familiar figure on the front porch. Not Lucia, but Iris Mitchell, the interior designer. She was examining the front door, making notes on a tablet. I parked across the street and watched her work, an idea forming. Maybe I didn't need to fight Lucia for a flawed house. Maybe what I needed was leverage, something to ensure she never blindsided me again. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Milena, it's Louisa. I need your advice." Milena's apartment hadn't changed in the 5 years since I'd last visited. Books still lined every wall, plants crowded the windows, and the scent of cardamom and cloves hung in the air. My former English professor sat across from me, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a loose bun, her dark eyes studying me over reading glasses. "So," she said, setting down her teacup, "you want to use what you know about this designer to—" "What exactly?" I shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. "Not blackmail, just Leverage. Louisa. My name in her mouth sounded like disappointment. I know how it sounds, I admitted. But Lucia crossed a line. She went behind my back, made decisions about my life without consulting me. Like you're planning to do to her? The question hit like a slap. I stared into my tea, watching the leaves swirl at the bottom of the cup. It's different, I said finally. Yea, is it? Milena leaned forward. When you came to me all those years ago, desperate to escape your life here, what did I tell you? That running away doesn't solve problems, I recited. It just changes the scenery. And revenge doesn't heal betrayal. It just gives you something to focus on besides the pain. I set my cup down with more force than necessary. So I'm just supposed to accept what she did? Let her keep the house? I didn't say that. Milena's voice softened. But there's a difference between standing up for yourself and becoming the thing that hurt you. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lucia. I ignored it. What would you do? I asked. Milena considered this. I'd start by having an honest conversation. Not about the house, but about the friendship. Because this isn't really about property, is it? The truth of her words settled heavily in my chest. This wasn't just about the house. It was about years of feeling second best to Lucia's needs, about the pattern of her making decisions for my own good without consulting me. And if the conversation doesn't work, I asked, then you decide what matters more, winning or keeping your integrity. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Now, tell me about this interior designer. What makes you think she has secrets worth leveraging? I parked down the street from Iris's office the next morning, watching as she unlocked the front door. My conversation with Milena had left me conflicted, but I wasn't ready to abandon my plan entirely. Not yet. Iris's design firm occupied a converted Victorian in the Arts District. Through the large front windows, I could see her moving around, setting up for the day. I checked my watch, 15 minutes until her first appointment, according to the schedule Eric had helped me access. My phone rang. Aiden. Where are you? He asked when I answered. I stopped by your apartment. Following up on something, I said vaguely. Something or someone? His tone was knowing. Lou, tell me you're not stalking Iris Mitchell. Not stalking, observing. He sighed. This isn't you. The Lou I know doesn't lurk in cars watching people. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think. The words came out sharper than intended. Maybe I don't. He agreed quietly. The Lou I know values honesty above all else. The Lou I know would confront problems head-on, not scheme around them. The Lou you know got her dream house stolen by her best friend. And that sucks. It really does. But this path you're on, it leads somewhere dark, Lou. I watched as a client entered Iris's office, a tall woman with a designer handbag and confident stride. I have to go. Lou! I ended the call and got out of my car. It was now or never. The bell above the door chimed as I entered the design studio. Iris looked up from her desk, recognition flickering across her face. Louisa, she said, her tone carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting you. I was hoping we could talk. I glanced at the client, who was browsing fabric samples. Privately. Iris hesitated, then nodded. Jenny, would you mind giving us a moment? Help yourself to coffee in the back room. Once we were alone, Iris gestured to a chair. I assume this is about the Maple Street property. Indirectly. I sat, maintaining eye contact. It's about your business practices. Her expression hardened. Excuse me? 3 years ago, you were involved in a lawsuit with a client named Darren. He claimed you were taking kickbacks from contractors, inflating their bids and pocketing the difference. Iris's face paled slightly. That case was dismissed because Darren couldn't afford to continue, not because you were innocent. I leaned forward. I have copies of emails between you and Premier Construction discussing your consulting fees. Where did you get those? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Does it matter? I kept my tone even, though my heart was racing. What matters is that the licensing board would find them very interesting. Iris stood abruptly, moving to close the blinds on the front windows. When she turned back to me, her composure had returned. What do you want? The question hung between us. What did I want? Revenge? The house? Or something else entirely? I want you to drop Lucia as a client, I said finally, and I want information. Information about what? About why she really bought that house. Because I don't believe it was to protect me from a bad investment. Iris studied me for a long moment. You two have been friends for how long? 15 years? And you're willing to threaten me, potentially ruin my career, to get back at her? Put that way, it sounded petty, vindictive, not like me at all. I'm willing to do what it takes to understand what happened, I amended, and to make sure it never happens again. Iris sank back into her chair. Lucia came to me 6 months ago, long before you had an offer on the house. 6 months! My mind raced. That's impossible. I only found the listing 3 months ago. She knew about it before it was listed. She's been planning to buy that house for a while, Louisa. Iris hesitated. And it has nothing to do with the foundation. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Then why? That's something you need to ask her. Iris reached for her phone. Now, are you going to report me, or can we both agree this conversation never happened? I stood on shaky legs. I need to think. As I reached the door, Iris called after me. For what it's worth, I think you're asking the right questions, just not in the right way. Outside, I leaned against my car, struggling to breathe. 6 months. Lucia had known about the house for 6 months, before I'd even found it, before there was any inspection report. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk about Lucia. Meet me at Riverfront Park, North Entrance, 3 p.m. Eric's. Riverfront Park was crowded with afternoon joggers and parents pushing strollers. I scanned the north entrance, spotting Eric on a bench overlooking the water. His lanky frame was hunched over a laptop, dark hair falling across his forehead as he typed. This is cryptic, even for IT guys, I said, sitting beside him. Eric glanced up, his eyes darting nervously around us before returning to his screen. I found something you should see. About Lucia? He nodded, angling the laptop toward me. I recovered those emails you asked for, but I found something else, something weird. The screen showed a series of email exchanges between Lucia and someone named Marcus. I skimmed the first few messages, my confusion growing. Who's Marcus? Property developer, specializes in historic renovations. Eric pointed to a line in one of the emails. See this? They're discussing the Maple Street house, from 8 months ago. My stomach clenched. 8 months? That's before it was even listed for sale, before you ever mentioned it to her. Eric scrolled down. And look at this one. The email was dated just 2 weeks ago. Lucia. The City Council approved the rezoning request yesterday. Once we secure the remaining properties on the block, we can move forward with the development plan. Your investment in 1422 Maple puts us at 80% ownership of the target area. The foundation issue is a blessing in disguise. It gives us legitimate grounds to demolish rather than preserve. Congratulations on your foresight. This will be the development deal of the decade. Marcus. I read it twice, my hands growing cold. She's planning to tear it down? For some development project? Eric nodded grimly. The whole block, eventually. Look at the attachment. He opened a PDF, architectural renderings of a modern mixed-use complex, retail spaces on the ground floor, luxury apartments above, where my house, where the entire historic neighborhood currently stood. She lied, I whispered, about everything. There's more. Eric hesitated. She's been monitoring your emails. That's why I wanted to meet in person. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. What? There's a forwarding rule on your personal account. Everything gets copied to an address I traced back to her. It's been active for at least a year. A year? Every email I'd sent or received, every conversation about the house, about my plans, about my finances. Why would she? I couldn't finish the question. Eric closed his laptop. Money, the development plan mentions expected returns of 300% for early investors. I stood abruptly, needing to move, to breathe. I have to go. Louisa, wait. Eric caught my arm. There's something else you should know. She's not doing this alone. There are other investors. Who? His eyes met mine. Aiden's name is on the investor list. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind racing. Aiden, my rock, my confidant, the person I trusted most after Lucia, both betraying me. Night had fallen by the time I found myself outside Aiden's apartment building. Lights glowed warmly behind his third-floor windows. I sat in my car, watching shadows move across the blinds. Was he alone? Was Lucia there? Were they laughing about how easily I'd been manipulated? My phone buzzed with a text from him. I know you're outside. Come up. Of course he knew. He probably had my phone tracked too. The elevator ride to his floor felt endless. Each step down the hallway required conscious effort. When I knocked, the door opened immediately. Aiden stood there, concern etched on his face. Lou, what's going on? You've been sitting outside for 20 minutes. I pushed past him into the apartment. Tell me about the development project. He froze, color draining from his face. What? Don't. My voice shook with rage. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. The project that's going to tear down my house, the whole neighborhood, the one you and Lucia invested in. Aiden closed the door slowly. How did you find out? Does it matter? You lied to me, both of you. It's not what you think. He moved toward me, hands raised placatingly. Then what is it? I demanded. Explain how my two closest friends conspired behind my back to destroy my dream. We were trying to protect you. The words burst from him. That neighborhood is dying, Lou. The development is inevitable. We wanted to make sure you didn't sink your life savings into a house that would be worthless in 2 years. So you decided to profit from it instead? Without telling me? I wanted to tell you. He ran a hand through his hair. Lucia thought it would be better to wait until after. After what? After you'd secured all the properties? After demolition began? I laughed bitterly. When exactly was the right time to mention you were destroying my dream house? Aiden sank onto the couch. It's complicated, Lou. It's really not. I remained standing, needing the physical advantage. You chose money over honesty, over me. That's not fair. He looked up, his eyes pleading. I invested because Lucia convinced me it was the only way to ensure you got something out of this. The returns would have more than paid for a better house in a better neighborhood. But it wasn't your decision to make. The words tore from my throat. It was mine. My life, my choice, my dream. Lou? No. I stepped back. I trusted you, both of you, and you treated me like a child who couldn't make her own decisions. We were trying to help. By lying, by spying on my emails, by manipulating me. Each question felt like ripping off a bandage, exposing raw wounds beneath. That's not help, Aiden. That's control. He stood, reaching for me. Please, just listen. I backed away. I'm done listening to lies. As I turned to leave, he called after me. What are you going to do? I paused at the door, a cold clarity settling over me. What I should have done from the beginning. Fight back. Outside, my phone rang. Lucia. I answered with steady hands. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I know you've been digging. It's time you heard the whole truth. Fine, I replied. Tomorrow, at the house, noon. Lou! And Lucia? Bring the property documents. All of them. I didn't sleep. Instead, I spread documents across my apartment floor. Emails Eric had recovered, property records I'd requested from the county clerk, zoning applications filed under Marcus's development company. By dawn, I had a clearer picture of what I was facing, A meticulously planned project with powerful backers and millions at stake. And at the center of it all, Lucia, my best friend. My phone buzzed with a text from Milena. Whatever you're planning for today, remember who you are. Who was I? The question echoed as I showered and dressed. The person I'd been a week ago, trusting, forgiving, conflict avoidant, seemed like a stranger now. That Louisa would never confront her best friend. That Louisa would swallow her hurt and move on. But that Louisa didn't know what betrayal really felt like. I arrived at the house 30 minutes early, parking across the street to gather my thoughts. The blue door that had once represented my future now seemed to mock me. I'd imagined myself walking through it thousands of times, coming home to a place that was truly mine. A taxi pulled up, and Stephen stepped out. My stomach dropped. Stephen, the fellow English teacher I'd met in Bangkok 3 years ago. The one who'd followed his own betrayal to a dark place I'd promised myself I'd never go. "What are you doing here?" I asked as he approached my car. He leaned down to the window, his familiar crooked smile not reaching his eyes. "Aiden called me, said you might need a friend who understands." "Aiden has no right to be worried about you?" Stephen opened my car door. "Come on, let's walk." Reluctantly, I joined him on the sidewalk. We strolled in silence for a minute before he spoke again. "Remember what I told you in Bangkok about my business partner?" I nodded. Stephen's partner had stolen his investment, leaving him bankrupt and stranded in Thailand. "I spent 2 years plotting revenge," he continued. "Followed him to Singapore, gathered dirt, nearly destroyed his new business." He stopped walking, turning to face me. "Want to know what I got for all that effort?" "Justice," I suggested. An ulcer, depression, and the realization that I'd wasted 2 years of my life on someone who'd forgotten about me within months. His eyes held mine. "Revenge is a poison you drink yourself, Lou." "This isn't about revenge," I insisted. "It's about standing up for myself." "Is it?" Stephen glanced toward the house. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to burn down your life to spite Lucia." "She betrayed me." "Yes, she did." He nodded. "And that's on her. What you do next, that's on you." A sleek black car pulled up to the house. Lucia stepped out, dressed impeccably as always, a portfolio tucked under her arm. She spotted us and hesitated before walking to the front door. "I have to do this," I said. Stephen squeezed my shoulder. "Just remember, there's a difference between confronting someone and destroying them. One leaves room for you to heal. The other," he shook his head, "the other leaves nothing but ashes." He walked away, leaving me alone with his words echoing in my mind. I took a deep breath and crossed the street. Lucia opened the door before I could knock. The house smelled of fresh paint and new carpeting. Renovations had already begun. "You're early," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "So are you." We stood awkwardly in the entryway, 15 years of friendship suddenly insufficient for this moment. "I brought the documents," she finally said, gesturing to the portfolio on a small table. "Everything about the development project." I moved past her into what would have been the living room. The space was empty except for 2 folding chairs facing each other. "Expecting a showdown?" I asked, nodding toward the chairs. "Expecting a conversation." Lucia remained by the door. "One that's long overdue." I sat, crossing my arms. "So talk." She joined me, placing the portfolio between us. "First, I want to say I'm sorry. Not for buying the house. I still believe that was the right call, but for how I did it, for not being honest with you." "Why?" The question contained multitudes. Why lie? Why betray me? Why this house? The development project started a year ago. Marcus approached me about investing. He needed someone with connections to local property owners. She opened the portfolio, revealing maps and plans. "This neighborhood is prime real estate, Lou. The returns will be astronomical." "And that justifies lying to me?" "No." She met my gaze directly. "Nothing justifies that. But when you told me you were interested in this specific house," she sighed. I panicked. We already had commitments from most of the block. This was the last property we needed. So you bought it out from under me. I tried to steer you toward other neighborhoods first. Remember those listings I sent? The ones you dismissed without even looking? I did remember. I'd been so fixated on this house, this street. The foundation issues are real, she continued. That wasn't a lie. But yes, we plan to demolish and rebuild regardless. And monitoring my emails? Was that part of your protection too? Lucia flinched. That was Marcus's idea. After you mentioned looking at properties in this area, I should have said no. But you didn't. The betrayal still stung, sharp and fresh. You invaded my privacy, you and Aiden both. Aiden didn't know about the emails, she said quickly. He only invested because I convinced him it would help you in the long run. I laughed bitterly. Everyone making decisions about my life except me. I know how it looks. Do you? I stood, unable to remain still. Do you know what it's like to discover the two people you trust most have been manipulating you? Planning to profit from your disappointment? That's not fair. None of this is fair, my voice echoed in the empty room. I spent 8 years, Lucia, saving for this, working jobs I hated in countries where I knew no one, missing funerals and weddings and birthdays, all for this house. And you would have lost everything when the development went through. She stood to face me. The neighborhood would have changed around you. Property values would have plummeted during construction, then skyrocketed beyond what you could afford in taxes. That should have been my choice to make. You're right. The admission seemed to deflate her. You're right. And I was wrong. I thought I was protecting you, but I was controlling you. Just like my mother, I finished. The realization hit like a physical blow. You became exactly what I was trying to escape. Lucia winced. I never meant to. But you did. I moved to the window, looking out at the street. So what now? The development moves forward? You get rich, and I get what? Your apology? You get this. She pulled a document from the portfolio and held it out. 20% of my investment share. It's already done. The paperwork was filed yesterday. I stared at the document without taking it. You think you can buy me off? I think I can make this right. Her voice cracked slightly. I think I can give you a future instead of a money pit. The returns on this investment will buy you any house you want, Lou. A better one. It was never about the house itself. My throat tightened. It was about having something that was mine, something no one could take away. I know. Lucia set the document on the chair. And I took that from you. I can't undo it, but I can try to make amends. The front door opened before I could respond. Aiden's voice called from the entryway. Lou? Lucia? We need to talk. He appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Marcus is on his way, with the demolition permits. Lucia paled. That's impossible. The community review period doesn't end for another month. He expedited it. Aiden looked at me. I'm sorry, Lou. I just found out. They're starting demolition tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word echoed in my head as I looked around the room that should have been my living room, in the house that should have been my home. So that's it? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Game over? Not necessarily. Aiden stepped fully into the room. There's still one option left, but it's risky. What option? Lucia and I asked simultaneously. The historical preservation clause. His eyes met mine. The one you found in the original deed. The historical preservation clause? Lucia stared at Aiden. What are you talking about? I moved to the window, heart pounding. It was in the original property records. A covenant from 1923 stating that the house cannot be demolished due to its historical significance. That's impossible, Lucia shook her head. Marcus's team would have found it. They did. Aiden pulled out his phone, showing us an email. They found it and buried it. I discovered it when I was reviewing the title documents last night. Outside, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, followed by two others carrying briefcases. "Marcus," Lucia whispered. "We don't have much time," Aiden said urgently. "Lou, do you still have those property records you requested?" I nodded, pulling folded papers from my bag. "The original deed and covenant. But will it be enough? They clearly have connections at the city." "It will be if we can get it to the right people before demolition starts." Aiden took the papers, scanning them quickly. The Historical Preservation Society has an emergency injunction process specifically for situations like this. Lucia grabbed her phone. "I'll call my lawyer." "Your lawyer works for Marcus," I reminded her. She paused, then nodded. "You're right. We need someone independent." The front door opened. Heavy footsteps approached. "Ladies!" Marcus's voice was smooth as oil as he entered the room. "I see Aiden's joined our little gathering. How convenient." He was taller than I'd expected, with silver hair and the confident stance of someone used to getting his way. The two men flanking him remained silent, watchful. "Marcus!" Lucia stepped forward. "We need to talk about the demolition schedule." "Nothing to discuss." He smiled thinly. "Permits are approved. Work begins tomorrow at 8 a.m. "There's a problem with that plan," I said, finding my voice. "This house is protected by a historical covenant." Marcus's smile didn't waver. "That old thing? It was invalidated years ago. The paperwork's already been processed." "Invalidated how?" Aiden challenged. "The covenant requires approval from the Historical Society Board to be overturned. There's no record of that happening." A flicker of annoyance crossed Marcus's face. "These technical details are hardly worth discussing. The project is moving forward." "Not if we file an emergency injunction," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "And who exactly is we?" Marcus looked between us. "Lucia is my business partner. Aiden is an investor. And you?" His eyes narrowed. "You have no standing whatsoever." "Actually," Lucia interrupted, "I've transferred 20% of my shares to Louisa. She's an investor now, too." Marcus's composure slipped momentarily. "You did what?" "It's done," she said firmly. "Paperwork filed yesterday." "That's a breach of our agreement." His voice hardened. "Sue me." Lucia moved to stand beside me. "But the demolition isn't happening tomorrow." Marcus studied us, calculating. "This is disappointing, Lucia. I thought you understood what was at stake." He turned to one of his associates. "Call Judge Wilson. Tell him we need to discuss the Maple Street project." My stomach dropped. Of course he had a judge in his pocket. "While you're making calls," Aiden said, holding up his phone, "you should know I'm on with Diane from the Tribune. She's very interested in how demolition permits for a historically protected property were expedited through the system." Marcus's face darkened. "You're bluffing." "Want to find out?" Aiden put the phone on speaker. "Diane, you still there?" "Yes," a woman's voice replied. "And I'm recording, Mr. Davis. You were saying about the Maple Street Historical Covenant?" The room fell silent. Marcus stared at Aiden, then at me, then at Lucia. "This isn't over," he said finally. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually," I stepped forward, "I think we do. A developer willing to falsify documents, bribe officials, and bully property owners to get what he wants." "You can't prove any of that." "We don't have to." I gestured to Aiden's phone. "We just have to raise enough questions to trigger an investigation. How many city officials were expediting permits for you, Marcus? How many judges?" His jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "No," Lucia said quietly. "The mistake was thinking we could build something worthwhile by destroying what matters to people." Marcus turned to her, betrayal flashing in his eyes. "After everything I've done for you, you've done nothing for me," she cut him off. "You used me for my connections, just like I used Louisa for her trust. We were both wrong." He stared at her for a long moment, then at me. "Fine. Have your little victory today. But remember, People like me always win in the end. With that, he turned and stalked out, his associates hurrying after him. As the front door slammed, my knees nearly buckled. Aiden ended the call and caught my arm. "You okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. "Did we just win?" "For now," he said, "but he's right. This isn't over." "What happens next?" I asked, looking between them. Lucia picked up the property documents from the chair. "We file these with the Historical Society, get that emergency injunction, and then," she hesitated, "then we figure out what to do with this house." "We?" I raised an eyebrow. "If you'll let me help," she said softly. I know I don't deserve it. The anger I'd been nursing for days still burned, but alongside it was something else, a strange sense of clarity. Standing up to Marcus had felt right in a way that plotting revenge never had. "The foundation still needs fixing," I said finally. "I know a guy," Aiden offered. "Honest work, fair prices." I moved to the window again, looking out at the street. The house across the way, the one Lucia had been watching me from that first day, now seemed like part of another life. "I need to think," I said, "about all of this." "Of course." Lucia gathered her things. "Take all the time you need." As they turned to leave, I called after them. "Wait!" They paused, looking back expectantly. "The historical covenant," I said. "It doesn't just protect this house, it covers the entire block." Understanding dawned on their faces. "The whole development," Aiden breathed. "It can't happen, not the way Marcus planned." "No," I agreed. "It can't." For the first time in days, I felt something like hope unfurling in my chest. Not because I'd won, but because I'd found my voice, my power. "I think," I said slowly, "we need to call a neighborhood meeting." The community center buzzed with voices as I stood at the podium, surveying the packed room. Every chair was filled, with people lining the walls and spilling into the hallway. Neighbors who'd never spoken were now deep in conversation, united by a common threat. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "As you know, we've called this meeting to discuss the future of our neighborhood." From the front row, Iris gave me an encouraging nod. Beside her sat Milena, who'd helped organize this gathering, reaching out to her network of local activists and historians. Aiden stood at the back, arms crossed, watching the crowd's reactions. Lucia was conspicuously absent. 3 days ago, we obtained an emergency injunction stopping the demolition of properties on Maple Street. I continued. But that's just a temporary measure. Marcus and his development company will fight back. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew Marcus's reputation, his connections. "What they don't know," I said, pulling out a folder, "is that we have options they never considered." I outlined the plan we'd developed, a community land trust that would purchase properties from willing sellers at fair market value, preserving the historic character while allowing for sensible renovations and improvements. The historical covenant would be our legal foundation, but community ownership would be our strength. "This isn't just about stopping a developer," I explained. "It's about taking control of our neighborhood's future." Questions came rapid fire. How would it be funded? Who would manage the trust? What about homeowners who wanted to sell? I answered each one, drawing on research I'd done with Milena and the legal framework Aiden had helped develop. With each response, I felt more certain, more in command. This was what I'd been searching for all along, not just a house, but a home. A place where I belonged, where my voice mattered. As the meeting wound down, people approached with offers of help, expertise, and funding. A local attorney volunteered legal services. A retired architect offered to assess properties. A group of young professionals pledged to create a website and social media campaign. "You did good," Milena said, squeezing my arm as the crowd thinned. "I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied. "Any of you." "Actually, you could have." Aiden joined us. "That's what you never realized, Lou. You've always had this in you." I was about to respond when the community center door opened and Lucia walked in. The room quieted immediately, all eyes turning toward her. She looked different, less polished, more authentic. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her usual designer clothes replaced by jeans and a sweater. "Sorry I'm late," she said, approaching slowly. "I had something to finish." I met her halfway. "I didn't think you were coming." "I almost didn't." She handed me an envelope. "But you needed to see this." Inside was a legal document, a deed transfer, for the house on Maple Street. My name was listed as the new owner. "I don't understand," I said, looking up at her. "It's yours," she explained. "No strings attached. I've signed it over to you completely." "But the foundation is being repaired," she smiled faintly. "Consider it part of my apology." The room had emptied now, leaving just the two of us in the center, Aiden and Milena watching from a respectful distance. "Why?" I asked simply. "Because you were right." Lucia's composure cracked slightly. "About all of it. I convinced myself I was protecting you, but I was controlling you, just like my mother," I finished. "And yours," she added quietly. "We both grew up with mothers who thought they knew best, who made our decisions for us. I swore I'd never be like that, and then I became exactly what I hated." The revelation hit me with unexpected force. Lucia's controlling mother had been a constant topic during our college years. How different she was from my own passive, distant one. Yet somehow we'd both ended up in the same pattern. "The house is just a house, Lou," she continued. "What matters is that you get to decide what happens to it. Renovation, demolition, selling it to the land trust, whatever you choose. And Marcus? We'll have to find another project." A hint of her old confidence returned. "I've withdrawn my investment, and I've provided some interesting documents to the district attorney about his permitting practices." I stared at the deed in my hands, emotions swirling. This was what I'd wanted. My house, my choice. Yet it felt different now. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," I said honestly. "I know," she nodded. "I'm not asking for that. Just for the chance to earn back your trust someday." She turned to leave, but I caught her arm. "The neighborhood meeting next week," I said. "We could use someone with your financial expertise. If you're interested." A careful smile. "I'll be there." After she left, I walked to the window, watching as she crossed the parking lot. Aiden joined me, his reflection appearing beside mine in the glass. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there." I tapped the deed against my palm. "I own a house." "With a cracked foundation," he reminded me. "Don't we all?" I said, and he laughed. Outside, the sun was setting over the neighborhood. My neighborhood. The houses stood solid against the darkening sky, each with its own history, its own stories. Including mine now. I folded the deed and placed it in my bag. Tomorrow, I'd file the paperwork, make it official. Tomorrow, I'd start planning the repairs, the renovations, the future. But tonight, I just wanted to stand here and breathe, feeling the weight of ownership, not just of a house, but of my choices, my path forward. "Ready to go home?" Aiden asked. I nodded, suddenly certain. "Yes, but not to the blue house, not yet." Some dreams change shape when you hold them in your hands. Some foundations need more than concrete to be truly solid. And some houses become homes only after you've fought for them. Not against others, but against the parts of yourself that settled for less than you deserved.
I found it in his suitcase while looking for his passport, a receipt from Tiffany's for a diamond pendant necklace I'd never seen. The paper trembled between my fingers as I stared at the date. 2 weeks ago. Our 5th anniversary wasn't for months. The autumn morning light streamed through our bedroom windows, casting shadows across the cream carpet where Matthew's half-packed suitcase lay open. He was rushing to catch his flight to Chicago, shouting about missing documents from the bathroom where the shower still ran. "Meredith?" Did you find it? His voice echoed off tile. I slipped the receipt into my pocket, my heart hammering against my ribs. Still looking. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. The necklace cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. In 5 years together, Matthew had never spent that kind of money on jewelry, not even for my engagement ring, which he'd proudly called sensibly elegant when he proposed. I mechanically continued rifling through his belongings, finding the passport tucked beneath a folded dress shirt. The familiar scent of his cologne clung to the fabric, usually comforting, but now somehow cloying. "Got it!" I called out, forcing brightness into my voice. My fingers felt numb. Matthew emerged in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist, water beating on his shoulders. He smiled, that same warm smile that had made me fall for him at that charity auction years ago. "You're a lifesaver, babe." He kissed my cheek, and I fought the urge to flinch. I watched him dress with methodical efficiency. Charcoal suit, pale blue shirt, the silver tie clip I'd given him last Christmas. Each familiar gesture felt like a stranger's movements now. "The Anderson meeting shouldn't run late," he said, checking his phone. "Want to do dinner when I'm back? That new Italian place you mentioned?" "Sure," I said, my voice steady despite the acid churning in my stomach. "Text me when you land?" He was already heading for the door, rolling his suitcase. "Always do. Love you." The front door clicked shut. I waited until his car engine faded before pulling out the receipt, studying it like it might reveal new secrets. The price, the date, the item description that revealed nothing about its intended recipient. My phone buzzed. A text from Noelle. "Coffee? Need your marketing genius for this pitch." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Noelle had been my closest friend since college. She knew Matthew almost as well as I did, or thought she did. "Can't today. Deadline." Another lie, easier than the first. I called the office instead, my voice remarkably composed as I told them I was taking a sick day. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up our joint credit card statement. 3 hours later, my eyes were burning from staring at the screen. I'd found more. Dinner charges at restaurants we'd never visited together, a hotel booking downtown on a night he'd claimed to be working late, small purchases at shops I didn't recognize. Each discovery was a fresh crack in the foundation of everything I'd believed about us. My phone lit up with a text from Matthew. "Landed safe. Missing you already." I set the phone face down without responding. The diamond pendant was out there somewhere, probably nestled against someone else's collarbone. Someone who had dinner with my husband at candlelit restaurants while I worked late, believing his excuses about client meetings. The receipt felt heavy in my pocket, a paper weapon that had shattered 5 years of trust in an instant. I thought about confronting him immediately, demanding answers, but something deeper, colder, was taking root beneath the hurt. I opened a new browser tab and typed Tiffany's into the search bar. The pendant would have a serial number, the store would have records, and next week was the annual industry gala, the perfect opportunity to see who might be wearing a brand new diamond necklace. My hands had stopped shaking. The initial shock was crystallizing into something else, a clarity I'd never felt before. Matthew thought he was so careful, so clever with his secrets. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I picked up my phone and opened my calendar, scrolling to next Friday's gala. Time to start planning my outfit. After all, if I was going to watch my marriage implode in public, I wanted to look absolutely devastating doing it. The cursor blinked on the calendar entry as I added a note. Wear red. Red for rage. Red for revenge. Red for the blood he'd never see coming. The gala invitation mocked me from my desk. Thick cream cardstock with gold lettering, promising an evening of celebration and connection. I'd spent the past week methodically preparing, letting the anger simmer beneath a carefully maintained facade of normalcy. Matthew noticed nothing different when he returned from Chicago. He brought me a box of artisanal chocolates, kissed me like always, and slipped seamlessly back into our routine. Each gesture felt like sandpaper against my skin. "You're sure you want to go tonight?" he asked, adjusting his bow tie in our bedroom mirror. "You've seemed tired lately." I smoothed my red dress, a weapon disguised as silk. "Wouldn't miss it. Besides, the Morrison account team will all be there." I watched his reflection carefully, including Gianna. His hands paused fractionally on the tie. Right, good networking opportunity. I'd spent hours choosing this dress, knowing exactly how it would hit every curve. The neckline dipped just low enough to make the absence of any necklace conspicuous. Let him notice. Let him wonder. The ballroom at the Riverside Hotel dripped with crystal and pretense. I recognized faces from a dozen different firms, all playing the same game of corporate musical chairs. Matthew's hand rested at the small of my back as we worked the room, but I felt each time his eyes drifted away, scanning the crowd. "Meredith!" Gianna's voice cut through the chamber music. She air-kissed my cheek, champagne glass dangling from manicured fingers. "That dress is absolutely killer." I hugged her closer than necessary, noting how she stiffened slightly. "Thanks. Love your necklace. Is it new?" Her hand flew to her throat, to the simple pearl pendant that definitely wasn't from Tiffany's. "Oh, this old thing. Had it forever." Matthew had drifted away, deep in conversation with Patrick near the bar. I kept Gianna close, letting the champagne loosen her tongue. "How's the Morrison project going? Must be intense all those late nights." "What late nights?" She frowned. "We wrapped that weeks ago. Matthew's been focused on the new healthcare client." Ice spread through my chest. He'd used the Morrison project as an excuse for 3 dinner meetings last month. "Of course," I said smoothly. "I must be mixing up projects. Speaking of Matthew, have you met Susan from his team? I've been dying to connect with her about their marketing strategy." Gianna's glass froze halfway to her lips. "Susan? Oh." Her eyes widened with sudden recognition. "You mean Susan from the Chicago office?" The room tilted slightly. "Yes," I lied. "Exactly. I just met her last week when she was in town. Gorgeous woman, has this stunning diamond pendant she was showing off. Said it was a gift from—" Gianna's voice trailed off as she finally registered my expression. Horror crept across her face. "Oh God, oh God, Meredith, I didn't—" "Excuse me," I managed, turning away. The crowd seemed to pulse around me, faces blurring. I needed air. I pushed through the French doors onto the terrace, gripping the stone balustrade. The night air was sharp with approaching winter. Behind me, the party continued its glittering charade, while my world splintered into before and after. "Meredith?" Patrick's voice. I hadn't heard him follow me out. "You okay?" I turned, ready to brush him off, but stopped at his expression. He knew. Of course he knew. He and Matthew had weekly squash games, drinks after work. How many others knew? How long had I been the only one not seeing it? How long? My voice was barely a whisper. Patrick shifted uncomfortably. "I shouldn't—" "How long?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Since the Chicago merger. About 8 months. 8 months. While I'd been planning weekend trips and talking about starting a family, Matthew had been building a whole separate life. Every kiss, every "I love you," every shared moment had been a lie. "I'm so sorry," Patrick started, but I cut him off with a laugh that sounded nothing like me. "Don't be. I needed to know." I straightened my spine, letting the fury crystallize into purpose. And now I do. I walked back into the ballroom, my heels clicking against marble. Matthew was by the bar, checking his phone, probably texting her, Susan with her diamond pendant and her 8 months of secret dinners. He looked up as I approached, smile faltering at whatever he saw in my face. "Everything all right?" I took his champagne glass, draining it in one smooth motion. "Perfect," I said, setting it down with a decisive click. Everything is absolutely perfect. And it was, in a way, because now I knew exactly what I had to do. I waited 3 days after the gala before calling Noelle, long enough to ensure my voice wouldn't shake. She answered on the first ring. "Finally, I was starting to think you'd fallen into a marketing black hole. Can you meet?" I kept my tone casual. "That new coffee place on Maple?" There was a pause. Noelle had known me long enough to hear what I wasn't saying. "Give me 20 minutes. The cafe was quiet for a Sunday morning. Noelle took one look at my face and ordered us both double espressos. We claimed a corner table, and I pulled out the Tiffany's receipt, now worn from constant handling. Her eyes widened as she read it. "Oh, honey, that's not all." The words spilled out. The gala, Gianna's accidental revelation, Patrick's confirmation. Noelle listened without interrupting, her fingers white-knuckled around her cup. 8 months, she finally said. "That absolute bastard. I need your help." I leaned forward. "You handle background checks for your firm. I need to know everything about Susan from the Chicago office." Noelle set her cup down carefully. Are you sure that's the right move?" "Right?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "Nothing about this is right, but I need to know what I'm dealing with." "No, you need to confront Matthew, or talk to a lawyer, or I need to understand exactly what he's built behind my back before I tear it down." The intensity in my voice made a nearby customer glance over. Noelle studied me for a long moment. "This isn't you, Mare. The plotting, the revenge. You're better than this. Maybe I'm tired of being better." I pulled out my phone, showing her the hotel charges I'd found. While I was better, he was building a life with someone else. Being better just made me easier to fool. "Okay," she held up her hands. "But promise me you'll be careful. Whatever you're planning, just be careful." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Because the truth was, I didn't feel careful. I felt like a bomb with a lit fuse, counting down to detonation. Back home, I started my own investigation. LinkedIn revealed a Susan matching Gianna's description, recently promoted to regional director. Her profile showed she'd been in town the same weeks as Matthew's late meetings. Each confirmation was another twist of the knife. I was so focused on my screen that I almost missed the sound of keys in the door. Matthew was home early. "Hey, beautiful." He dropped a kiss on my head. "Working on a Sunday?" I closed the laptop, forcing a smile. Just getting ahead on some things. My heart was racing, but not from fear, from anticipation. "How was squash with Patrick?" "Good match. He's getting better." Matthew headed for the kitchen, but I caught the slight hesitation in his step. "Really? Because I ran into him at the grocery store an hour ago. He seemed surprised you hadn't called to reschedule." The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. "Right, sorry. It was tennis with Mark today. I'm getting my days mixed up." I watched him pull out ingredients for dinner, his movements deliberately casual. Every lie now stood out like neon signs. How had I ever missed them? My phone buzzed. A text from Noelle. "Found something. Call me ASAP." "I need to take this," I told Matthew, heading for our bedroom. "Work thing." I closed the door before calling Noelle. "What did you find?" "It's not what I found. It's what I didn't find." Her voice was tense. "There is no Susan in the Chicago office. Not now, not in the past year. But Gianna said Gianna met someone who called herself Susan. But whoever she is, she doesn't work for the company." The implications hit me like a physical blow. The lies went deeper than I'd imagined. Who was this woman? What else didn't I know? Mur, you still there? Yeah. I sank onto the bed, staring at my reflection in the dresser mirror. A stranger stared back, someone harder, colder. I need one more favor. Can you get me the security footage from the Riverside Hotel? The night of the gala? What are you thinking? Gianna said she met Susan last week. If she was at the gala, my voice hardened. I want to see her face. In the kitchen, I could hear Matthew humming as he cooked, playing his role of devoted husband. Let him pretend. Let him think he still held all the cards. Because now I knew this wasn't just about an affair. This was about a carefully constructed fiction, and I was going to dismantle it piece by piece until nothing remained but the truth. The security footage from the gala filled my laptop screen, ghostly figures in evening wear drifting through the frame. I'd been watching for hours, scrutinizing every woman who approached Matthew. Noelle had pulled strings to get the files, but the image quality was frustratingly grainy. A knock at my office door made me jump. Come in! Olive from accounting stepped in, clutching a stack of papers. Sorry to interrupt, but I need your signature on these expense reports. She paused, frowning at my screen. Is that the gala? I started to minimize the window, then stopped. Olive had been there that night. Actually, did you happen to notice a woman talking to Matthew? Tall, dark hair, probably wearing something expensive. Something flickered across her face. You mean Susan? My heart stopped. You know her? Olive shifted uncomfortably. I've seen her around. She comes to the office sometimes, usually late afternoons. Always goes straight to Patrick's office. Patrick. Of course. He wasn't just covering for Matthew. He was actively helping him. The betrayal burned fresh. When was the last time? Tuesday? Olive set down the expense reports. Listen, Meredith, I should have said something sooner. It felt wrong watching them all pretend. Them all? The words came out sharp. She sank into the chair across from my desk. There's a whole group that knows. Patrick, Gianna, some others. They do happy hours at Maxwell's downtown. I got invited once, but it felt, I don't know, like being part of something dirty. My hands were trembling. I'd imagined Matthew's betrayal as something contained, just him and this mystery woman. But this was a conspiracy of silence, a web of complicity that included people I saw every day. Show me, I said, pulling up the footage again. Where is she in this? Olive leaned forward, scanning the screen. There, by the bar in the blue dress, that's her. I froze the frame. The woman was facing away, but something about her posture seemed familiar. She was talking to Patrick, one hand resting possessively on his arm. Wait. I rewound further, watching her movements through the crowd. She never fully faced the camera, but her gestures, the way she carried herself. I know her. What? I've met her before, at the Christmas party last year. Patrick introduced her as his sister. Olive's eyes widened. That's impossible. Patrick's sister lives in Australia. He talks about her all the time. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Patrick hadn't just been covering for Matthew. He'd been actively creating her cover story, lending legitimacy to her presence. How many other lies had they constructed? My phone buzzed. A text from Matthew. Working late tonight, don't wait up. I showed it to Olive. Maxwell's? She nodded slowly. Probably. I need a favor. I met her eyes. A big one. 20 minutes later, I watched through Maxwell's front window as Matthew arrived. He headed straight for a corner booth where Patrick was already waiting. No sign of Susan yet. Are you sure about this? Olive whispered beside me. I touched the phone in my pocket, recording everything. Completely. We went inside, choosing a table with a clear view. Matthew's back was to us, but I could see Patrick's face as he looked up and saw us. The color drained from his cheeks. Showtime. I murmured. I stood, walking deliberately toward their table. Matthew was mid-sentence when he sensed my presence. He turned, surprise flickering across his face before he controlled it. What are you doing here? Funny, I said, my voice carrying. I was about to ask you the same thing. Thought you were working late. I am. Just a quick drink with Patrick to discuss the Henderson proposal. Really? I turned to Patrick. Or are we waiting for your sister, the one from Australia? Patrick's glass slipped, spilling whiskey across the table. Matthew went very still. Meredith, he started, but I cut him off. Just don't. I placed my phone on the table, the recording still running. I want to meet her, the real her, or the next conversation we have will be with HR. The threat hung in the air. Patrick looked between us, panic rising in his eyes. But Matthew's expression had changed to something calculating. Okay, he said quietly. You want the truth? Come back tomorrow night, same time. Why not now? His smile was cold. Because, darling, there are some things you're not ready to hear. I matched his stare. Tomorrow, then. Walking away, I could feel their eyes on my back. Olive waited by the door, concern etched on her face. But beneath the fear and anger, something else was growing. A fierce satisfaction. Because tomorrow, finally, the masks would come off, and I was ready to face whatever truth lay beneath. I spent the day watching the clock, every minute crawling by like honey. Noelle called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't handle her concern, her warnings about being careful. Careful was for people who still had something to lose. At 6, I left the office without saying goodbye to anyone. The autumn air had turned bitter, matching my mood. Maxwell's neon sign buzzed in the growing darkness, a red glow that seemed to pulse with my heartbeat. They were already there, Matthew, Patrick, and a woman with dark hair sitting between them. My hands clenched involuntarily as I recognized her profile from the security footage. She looked up as I approached, and the world tilted sideways. Hello, Meredith, said Susan Roberts, my mother-in-law, the woman who had died in a car accident 12 years ago. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. This is impossible. Sit down, Matthew said quietly. Please. I sank into the chair, staring at the ghost across from me. She looked different from the photos Matthew kept. Older, harder somehow, but unmistakably the same woman. You're dead, I managed. He told me you were dead? He told everyone that. Susan's voice was exactly as I'd imagined it from Matthew's stories. It was easier than explaining the truth. Which is? Matthew reached for my hand. I yanked it away. Don't. I had to protect her, he said. After what happened with Dad's company, the investigations, she would have lost everything. The embezzlement scandal. The pieces started clicking together. But that was a cover story, Susan finished. Robert wasn't embezzling. He was gathering evidence against the board. They were laundering money for some very dangerous people. She smiled without humor. Then he had his accident, and I knew I was next. My head was spinning. So you faked your death. Matthew helped me disappear. New identity, new life. It was supposed to be temporary, just until we could prove what really happened. But the deeper we dug, she shook her head. Patrick's been helping, Matthew added. His security clearance gives us access to records we need. We're close to having enough evidence to go public. Close? My laugh sounded hysterical even to me. You've been close for 8 months, while lying to my face every day? I couldn't tell you, he pleaded. It wasn't safe. If they knew you knew. Shut up. I turned to Susan. The necklace, was that some kind of signal? She touched her throat where the diamond pendant hung. A dead drop. The USB drive is inside. Next week's board meeting is our chance to finally expose everything. How convenient. I stood up, my chair scraping back. You know what I think? I think you're both lying. Again. I think this is just another story to cover up whatever's really going on. Meredith, wait. Matthew reached for me. Don't touch me. Several heads turned at my outburst. You let me believe you were having an affair. You let me think I was crazy, paranoid, imagining things. Do you have any idea what that did to me? It was better than making you an accomplice, Susan said sharply. Better than putting you in danger. Better for who? The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. You got to play dead mother-in-law spy games while I planned our future, while I talked about having children with a man who couldn't even tell me the truth about his own mother. Matthew's face crumpled. I wanted to tell you so many times, but you didn't. I wiped my eyes roughly. And now you never have to, because I'm done. You can't leave, Susan said urgently. Not now. If they think you know something, then what? They'll arrange an accident for me too? I laughed bitterly. Good luck explaining that one to your next wife, Matthew. I turned to go, but Susan's next words froze me in place. They're already watching you. Have been since the gala. Your friend Olive? She doesn't work for accounting. She works for them. The room seemed to tilt again. Olive's convenient appearance, her helpful information, her eagerness to assist. You're lying. Check your phone, Patrick said quietly. The recording from last night? It's gone. She took it while you were in the bathroom. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone. The recording was gone. All my recent calls, texts, photos, erased. So what now? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Now, Susan said, you sit back down, and we figure out how to keep you alive long enough to finish this. I sank back into my chair, looking at these familiar strangers around me. My husband, my dead mother-in-law, my friend the secret agent. Tell me everything, I said, and this time don't leave anything out. The safe house was a bland apartment in a forgettable building. I sat on a threadbare couch while Susan laid out files across the coffee table, bank statements, emails, surveillance photos, evidence of a conspiracy that had been growing under my feet like toxic roots. The board meeting is in 3 days, she explained. Once we present this, they'll have no choice but to. A knock at the door silenced her. 3 sharp raps, then 2 soft ones, Patrick's signal. But when the door opened, it wasn't just Patrick who entered. Noelle? My voice cracked. What are you doing here? She stepped inside, looking grimmer than I'd ever seen her. Cleaning up a mess. You should have stayed out of it, Mir. Understanding hit like a physical blow. You're one of them. Not exactly. She glanced at Susan. I'm FBI, deep cover for the past 3 years, investigating the same people you are, until you started poking around and nearly blew everything. I looked at Matthew, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Did you know? Not until tonight, he said quietly. She contacted us after you left Maxwell's. Noelle sat across from me, her familiar face now strange with secrets. Those background checks you asked for? They set off every alarm we had. We've been building this case for years, and suddenly my best friend is digging into exactly the wrong places. Your best friend. The words tasted like ash. Was any of it real? All of it. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. That's why this is so hard. I need you to step back, Mare. Let us handle it. Step back? I gestured at the files. I'm already in it. Olive is being handled, Patrick interrupted. We've fed her false information. As far as they know, you're just a jealous wife chasing shadows. My laugh had an edge of hysteria. That's exactly what I was, Until an hour ago, I thought my husband was having an affair with his dead mother. Keep your voice down, Susan warned. Or what? More accidents? More lies? I stood up, pacing. How many more people are watching me? How much of my life is even real anymore? All of it was real, Matthew said softly. Everything between us. I just couldn't. If you say you couldn't tell me one more time, I swear to God. We need to move, Noelle cut in. They're expecting suspicious activity around the board meeting. We have to get the evidence in place tonight. No. The word surprised even me. Excuse me? I said no. Clarity was crystallizing through the chaos. You don't get to sideline me now. Not after everything. Meredith, Susan started, but I cut her off. They're watching me, right? Expecting the jealous wife act? A plan was forming. So let's give them what they expect. Understanding dawned on Noelle's face. You want to be the distraction. I want to be myself. I turned to Matthew. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to make a scene at your office. A big one. Very public, very messy. The kind of thing a woman who just discovered her husband's affair would do. While we move the evidence, Patrick nodded slowly. They'll be focused on you. It's too dangerous, Matthew protested. More dangerous than letting me stumble around in the dark? I met his eyes. You wanted to protect me by keeping me ignorant. Look how well that worked out. Silence fell as they considered. Finally, Noelle spoke. It could work, but there's no going back after this. Your life as you knew it? My life as I knew it ended the moment I found that receipt. I picked up one of the surveillance photos. At least now I get to choose how it ends. Susan was watching me with new respect. You understand what you're risking? Better than you did when you let me marry your son without knowing the truth. The words hit their mark. She flinched slightly. Tomorrow morning, then, Noelle said. 9 a.m.? I nodded, already planning. I'll need my red dress. The one from the gala? Matthew asked. Seems fitting. I managed a bitter smile. I bought it to confront your mistress. Might as well wear it to confront your mother. Later, driving home through empty streets, Matthew tried to speak several times. I kept the radio on, drowning him out. Let him sit with the silence for once. My phone buzzed. A text from Olive. Drinks tomorrow? Need to talk about what happened at Maxwell's. I showed it to Matthew. He tensed. Don't respond. I know how to play my part, I said coldly. I've had plenty of practice. Tomorrow, I would become what they all expected. The hysterical, betrayed wife making a public scene. But behind the performance would be something else. Something harder. Something real. Because now I knew the truth. And the truth, it turns out, was far more dangerous than any lie. The elevator doors opened onto the 32nd floor at exactly 9:07 a.m. My red dress was a battle flag, my heels striking marble like warning shots. Conversations died as I passed. Someone whispered, "Oh shit, good, let them watch." Matthew's office door was closed. Through the glass wall, I could see him at his desk, performing his role perfectly. The unsuspecting husband about to be publicly destroyed. I didn't knock. How dare you? My voice carried across the suddenly silent floor. How dare you sit there pretending everything's normal? He looked up, practiced surprise on his face. Meredith, what are you? Don't. I slammed my hands on his desk, sending papers flying. I know about her, about all of it. Movement in my peripheral vision. Olive appearing in the doorway, phone raised. Recording just as we'd predicted. This isn't the place, Matthew said, standing. Let's talk about this at home. Like we talked about the necklace? I picked up his framed photos, examining them with exaggerated care. Or the late meetings, or should we talk about your mother? His flinch wasn't entirely acting. Around us, the audience grew. You're upset, he tried. I understand, but I hurled the frame. It shattered against the wall, glass tinkling like wind chimes. Someone gasped. Upset? I laughed, the sound raw. I'm way past upset, Matthew. I'm at the part where I burn everything down. Right on cue, Patrick appeared. Security's on their way. Meredith, you need to leave. Perfect timing. I rounded on him. Tell them about the happy hours at Maxwell's. Tell them what you've been helping him hide. Patrick's face drained of color, also not entirely acting. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of Noelle slipping into the conference room where the board would meet in 20 minutes. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned, until Olive stepped forward. I think, she said quietly, we should all calm down and discuss this privately. Something in her tone made my skin crawl. This wasn't the script. Nothing left to discuss. I moved toward the door, but she blocked my path. Actually, her smile was razor sharp. I insist. The gun appeared so smoothly, it seemed to materialize in her hand. Gasps and screams erupted as people scrambled back. Inside, she gestured to the conference room with the weapon. All of you. My heart hammered as Matthew and Patrick flanked me, moving slowly toward the door. This wasn't part of the plan. Noelle was in there, vulnerable, with the evidence. The conference room was already occupied. 3 men in suits stood around the table. In the corner, Noelle knelt with her hands zip-tied, a bruise darkening her cheek. Quite a performance, one of the men said, examining a USB drive, the one from Susan's necklace. But ultimately unnecessary. We've been ahead of you the whole time. Not quite. The voice came from behind us. Susan stood in the doorway, her own weapon trained on Olive. Drop it. Olive's laugh was cold. Or what? You'll shoot me in front of all these witnesses? They're still filming, you know. She nodded toward the glass walls where horrified faces pressed against the windows. They're filming exactly what we wanted them to film, I said, understanding finally clicking. A disgruntled wife's meltdown or a terrorist attack on a corporate office. The men in suits tensed. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. FBI! The shout preceded a dozen agents flooding the floor. Everybody down! Chaos erupted. Olive spun toward Susan, but Matthew was faster. He tackled her as the gun went off, the bullet shattering the glass behind us. I dropped to the floor as agents swarmed in, their weapons drawn. Clear! Someone shouted. Suspects in custody. Hands helped me up. Noelle, now free, pulled me into a fierce hug. You okay? I nodded, watching as agents led away the men in suits. Olive was being cuffed, her cold mask finally cracking. The evidence? I asked. Safe. Noelle smiled grimly. The real USB drive was never in the necklace. That was just to make them show their hand. Matthew approached slowly, uncertainty in his eyes. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead where he'd hit the ground. I'm sorry, he said softly, for all of it. I looked at him, really looked at him, past the lies and secrets, past the pain and betrayal. He'd tried to protect me by keeping me in the dark. But when it mattered, when the choice was between his secrets and my safety, he'd chosen me. I know, I said, but we're not done talking about this. No, he agreed, we're not. Outside the shattered windows, morning sun painted the city gold. Sirens faded into distance, and in the wreckage of my carefully constructed life, I felt something unexpected taking root. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. The hotel suite felt too large, too quiet after the chaos. I stood at the window, watching police lights pulse against neighboring buildings while FBI agents processed statements 12 floors below. Tea? Susan offered from behind me. Something stronger. She poured 2 whiskeys, joining me at the window. We hadn't been alone together since the truth came out. The woman I'd imagined from Matthew's stories. soft-spoken, gentle, bore little resemblance to the sharp-eyed operative beside me. "You could have told me," I said finally, "that night at Maxwell's. You could have trusted me from the start. Would you have believed me?" "No," I smiled slightly. "But I would have respected the truth more than another lie." She swirled her drink, ice clinking. "When Robert died, I thought I was protecting Matthew by disappearing. Instead, I forced him to carry my secrets, to become like me." She met my eyes. "I never meant for him to do the same to you." "But he did." I turned from the window. "And now what? We all pretend to be a normal family?" "Normal is overrated." Noelle entered, still in her tactical gear. "Besides, you'd be bored. You're one to talk." But there was no bite in my words. The anger that had driven me for weeks felt distant now, replaced by something more complex. "The board members are singing," Noelle continued. Olive's handler rolled on the whole operation. "It's over." "Is it?" I asked quietly. A knock interrupted whatever she might have answered. Matthew stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. "Can we talk?" Susan and Noelle exchanged glances before slipping out. The door clicked shut with finality. Matthew stayed by the door, keeping his distance. Smart man. "The papers are ready," he said. "If you want them." Divorce papers. The simple solution. Clean break, fresh start. I'd been so sure that's what I wanted. "Did you ever actually trust me?" I asked instead. "Or was I just another cover story? You were the only real thing in my life." His voice cracked. "Every lie I told was because I couldn't bear to lose that." "But you did lose it. The moment you chose lies over truth." "I know." He took a step forward, then stopped. "But maybe we could try truth for a change." I laughed despite myself. "Just like that?" "No." He pulled something from his pocket, the diamond pendant. "Not just like that, but maybe like this." He set it on the coffee table between us. "What's this?" "A choice." He met my eyes steadily. "Inside is everything, every secret, every operation, every lie I've ever told. Read it, destroy it, turn it over to the press. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it." I picked up the necklace, feeling its weight. "And if I choose to walk away? Then I'll respect that too." His smile was sad. "But I'm hoping you'll choose to stay. Not for the man you thought I was, but for the man I want to be. The man you make me want to be." The necklace caught the light, scattering diamonds across the wall. So much pain and deception wrapped in something beautiful, like our marriage. "I can't promise forgiveness," I said slowly. "I'm not asking for it, just possibility." I thought of that first receipt, how it had shattered my world, how each revelation since had forced me to rebuild myself stronger, sharper, more true. "Okay," I slipped the necklace into my pocket. "But we do this my way." "Which is?" "First, you're moving out. I need space to process everything without you there pretending nothing's changed." He nodded, accepting this. "Second, we start therapy. Real therapy, where we actually tell the truth." "Done." "And third?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the hope and fear warring in his eyes. "No more lies, not even small ones, not even to protect me, because I'm not the woman you married anymore. I'm someone stronger, someone who can handle the truth." "No," he agreed softly. "You're someone who demands it." I reached up, touching his cheek where a bruise was forming from the fight. He stayed perfectly still, letting me choose the contact. "One more thing," I said. "Anything." "That red dress? I'm keeping it. Sometimes a woman needs armor." His laugh was surprised, genuine. "It suits you." I stepped back, maintaining the necessary distance between us. There would be more revelations, more painful truths to face. The path ahead was uncertain. But for the first time since finding that receipt, I felt truly powerful, not because of secrets uncovered or justice served, but because I finally knew who I was. A woman who could face deception and emerge stronger, who could choose truth even when lies were easier, who could wear red not for revenge, but for herself.
The notification chimed, a harmless little sound that would end up destroying my life. I was blow-drying my hair, getting ready for work, when I glanced at my phone and saw the message from Ava. "Is this you?" She'd attached a screenshot of a dating profile. I squinted at it, confused, then nearly dropped my phone into the sink. My face stared back at me. My face? On a profile I'd never created. "What the hell?" I whispered, fingers trembling as I zoomed in. The profile name read Mackenzie After Hours with a bio that made my stomach turn. Executive assistant by day, whatever you want by night. Married men welcome, I know how to be discreet. I sat down hard on the edge of the bathtub, my legs suddenly unable to support me. The blow dryer clattered to the floor, still humming against the tile. I couldn't breathe. 3 more photos of me followed. One from the company Christmas party in a black dress I'd saved for months to buy. Another from a beach trip last summer, laughing with Diego. The third was from my Instagram, me at my desk, captioned with a joke about needing more coffee. I called Ava immediately. "Where did you find this?" My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. "London sent it to me. She said she was on this app and recognized you." "London? Freya's friend. My boss's wife's friend." "I didn't make this profile," I said. "Someone's using my pictures." "I figured," Ava said. "It seemed way off-brand for you. But Mac, it's been active for weeks. London said she's seen conversations from this account." The bathroom suddenly felt too small. I walked to the bedroom where Diego was still sleeping, his dark hair messy against the pillow, one arm flung across what had been my side of the bed minutes earlier. "What conversations?" I whispered, moving to the hallway. "Flirty ones. With married men. Including..." She hesitated. "Including who, Ava?" "Flynn. My boss. My married boss. Married to Freya." "That's impossible," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, pieces started clicking into place. The strange looks from coworkers, Flynn's sudden coolness toward me after months of mentoring. The way Freya had watched me at the office party last week, her eyes following me across the room. "I need to see these conversations," I said. "London's sending them to me now. I'll forward everything." I ended the call and leaned against the wall, trying to think through the fog of panic. Who would do this? Who had access to my photos? Who would want to destroy my reputation this way? The bedroom door opened and Diego appeared, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Everything okay?" "I heard you talking." I showed him my phone wordlessly, watched his expression change as he scrolled through the screenshots. "What the hell, Mackenzie?" His voice hardened. "Is this real?" "Of course not." I grabbed the phone back. "Someone made this profile using my pictures. I would never..." "Then why does it have conversations from you? With your boss?" He was fully awake now, eyes narrowed. "What? Let me see." I hadn't gotten to those yet. Diego pulled up his own phone. "London sent these to me an hour ago. I was hoping you'd have an explanation." My heart stopped. London had sent these to Diego? Before Ava even told me? The messages were there on his screen. Explicit. Unmistakable. My profile picture next to words I'd never written, arranging meetings I'd never attended with my boss. "Diego, this isn't me. Someone set me up." His face had gone cold in a way I'd never seen before. "I've been watching you work late for months, taking calls at odd hours. I trusted you." Because there was nothing to distrust. Flynn's been mentoring me for the executive program. You know how important that is to me. Apparently not as important as sleeping with him. I'm not sleeping with anyone but you. My voice rose, desperation clawing at my throat. Diego was already pulling a duffel bag from the closet. I need some time. I can't do this right now. Do what? Believe me? Trust me? After 3 years together, you think I'd do this? He stuffed clothes into the bag without looking at me. The messages go back 2 months, Mackenzie. They're detailed. They mention things about the office only you would know. I felt like I was drowning. Someone is framing me. It has to be Freya. She's always hated me. Diego zipped the bag closed. Freya? Flynn's wife? Why would she pretend you're sleeping with her husband? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. He walked past me toward the door. Call me when you're ready to tell the truth. The apartment door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow hurt more than if he'd slammed it. My phone buzzed with Ava's forwarded messages. More screenshots, more evidence of things I'd never done. I scrolled through them, nausea rising in my throat, until I saw something that made everything click. A tiny detail in one of the messages. A reference to Freya's favorite restaurant, one she'd mentioned in passing at a company event months ago. Only someone close to Freya would know that. Someone who wanted to destroy me. I grabbed my keys. I needed to confront Freya before this spread any further. As I rushed out the door, my phone buzzed again. A text from Flynn. We need to talk. My office, 9 a.m. sharp. The office felt different as I walked in, like everyone knew something I didn't. Conversations stopped when I passed. Eyes followed me, then darted away when I looked back. I kept my chin up, clutching my coffee cup so tightly I was surprised it didn't shatter. 9 o'clock, Flynn's office, 20 minutes to go. Ava intercepted me at my desk, her eyes wide with concern. Are you okay? You look like hell. Diego left this morning, I said, my voice flat. After seeing those messages. Oh, Mac. She squeezed my arm. He'll come around once he realizes you were set up. Will he? Because right now I'm not sure anyone believes me. I glanced around the office, including Flynn. What did he say in his text? Just that we need to talk, which is corporate speak for you're screwed. I dropped my bag under my desk. I need to see Freya before I meet with him. Freya's here? Ava looked surprised. She never comes to the office. Exactly, but her car is in the parking garage. I recognized the vanity plate. I'd spent the entire train ride to work obsessing over why Freya would frame me. We'd always been cordial, professional, even friendly at company events. She'd never given any indication she saw me as a threat. I need to find her before my meeting, I said, standing up. Cover for me? Ava nodded, but her expression was troubled. Just be careful, okay? This whole thing feels calculated. I found Freya in the executive lounge, perched on a leather sofa with a tablet in her lap. She looked up when I entered, her face a perfect mask of polite surprise. Mackenzie, good morning. Why did you do it? I asked, keeping my voice low despite the empty room. She tilted her head slightly. Do what, exactly? Create a fake dating profile with my pictures. Pretend to be me. Send messages to your husband. Freya set her tablet aside, her movements deliberate. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I stepped closer. The profile mentioned your favorite restaurant, the one in the West Village with the truffle pasta you talked about at the Christmas party. No one else would know that detail. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, at being caught in such a small slip. But she recovered quickly. I have no idea what you're talking about, she said, standing. But I do know my husband received inappropriate messages from you. Messages that London showed me weeks ago, which I chose to ignore out of respect for Flynn's working relationship with you. Those weren't from me. The evidence suggests otherwise. Her voice was silk over steel. Flynn trusted you. I trusted you in my home at our dinner parties, and this is how you repay that trust? My hands were shaking. You're turning this around. You created that profile to make it look like I was pursuing Flynn. I want to know why. Freya's smile never reached her eyes. Perhaps you should consider that not everything is a conspiracy against you, Mackenzie. Sometimes people simply show their true colors. My true colors? I've worked 80-hour weeks for this company. I've canceled dates with Diego to finish projects. Yes, your poor boyfriend. Her tone shifted to something almost like pity. London mentioned he didn't take the news well. The realization hit me like a physical blow. You made sure London sent those screenshots to Diego, didn't you? You wanted to destroy my relationship too. Freya checked her watch. I believe you have a meeting with my husband in 5 minutes. I wouldn't keep him waiting. I wanted to scream, to grab her by the shoulders and shake the truth out of her. Instead, I took a deep breath. This isn't over, I said quietly. For you? I think it might be. She picked up her tablet and walked past me, the scent of her expensive perfume lingering in the air. Flynn was waiting when I arrived at his office, his face unreadable as he gestured for me to sit. I'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times, but the words evaporated when I saw the printouts on his desk, screenshots of conversations I'd never had. I didn't send those messages, I said before he could speak. Someone created a fake profile using my photos. Flynn leaned back in his chair. Mackenzie, I've always appreciated your directness. I'm asking for the same courtesy now. I am being direct. I'm being framed, and I think Freya is behind it. His expression hardened. You're accusing my wife of creating a fake profile to impersonate you? To what end? I don't know yet, but those messages aren't from me. Flynn pushed the papers toward me. These contain references to conversations we've had in this office. Private conversations about the executive program, about your career goals. Things only you and I would know. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. It's right here. He tapped the page. Details about the London expansion I mentioned to you last month. Information about the Harrison account that hasn't been made public. I felt the walls closing in. Someone had access to information from my private meetings with Flynn. Someone who knew what we discussed. I need you to take a leave of absence, Flynn said, his voice softening slightly. Paid, while we sort this out. HR will be involved. Flynn, please. It's not negotiable. He stood up, signaling the end of our meeting. I trusted you, Mackenzie, more than you know. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Blackbird Coffee at noon. I know who set you up. Come alone. Ezekiel. Ezekiel from accounting? The quiet guy who barely spoke at meetings? I glanced back at Flynn's office, where Freya had now appeared, her hand on her husband's shoulder as they spoke in low voices. Whatever game they were playing, I needed answers. And apparently, Ezekiel had them. Blackbird Coffee buzzed with the usual midday crowd. Laptops open, business meetings in hushed tones, baristas calling out complicated orders. I scanned the room twice before spotting Ezekiel in the far corner, hunched over his phone. I'd never paid much attention to him before. He was just the quiet guy from accounting who occasionally corrected Flynn's numbers during presentations. Now he might be my only ally. You came, he said as I slid into the chair across from him. No greeting, no small talk. You said you know who set me up. I kept my voice low. Was it Freya? Ezekiel glanced around before sliding his phone toward me. Not exactly. Look at this. It was an email chain between Flynn and Ava from 3 weeks ago. My heart stuttered as I read it. Where did you get this? I asked, my mouth dry. I handle the executive expense reports. Flynn accidentally forwarded this to me when submitting a receipt. He tapped the screen. Keep reading. The emails discussed me. My performance, my potential, and my inappropriate attachment to Flynn. Ava had written that I talked about Flynn constantly, that I stayed late hoping to catch time alone with him. This is bullshit, I whispered. Ava would never say these things about me. She did. Ezekiel's face remained impassive. And there's more. She's been feeding information to Freya for months. Details from your conversations, things you've told her in confidence. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. Ava, my friend, the person I'd trusted most at work, the one I'd confided in just this morning. Why would she do this? The executive program. Ezekiel took his phone back. You're not the only one who wants that promotion. Ava's been gunning for it too. I thought back to all our conversations about work, about Flynn. How Ava always seemed interested in my meetings with him, always asked for details. I'd thought she was being supportive. But the dating profile, that was Freya's idea, from what I can tell. Ava just provided the ammunition. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together under the table. How do you know all this? Something flickered across Ezekiel's face. Discomfort, maybe. I notice things. People don't pay attention to the quiet guy from accounting. They talk around me, leave their computers unlocked. Why are you helping me? He hesitated. They did something similar to my sister at her company. She never recovered professionally, never even knew who was behind it. I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. Found none. I need proof, I said finally. Something concrete I can take to HR, to Flynn. That's the problem. They've been careful. The profile was created using a VPN. The messages came from burner accounts. Then what am I supposed to do? Just let them destroy my career? My relationship? My voice cracked on the last word. Diego still wasn't answering my calls. Ezekiel leaned forward. You need to beat them at their own game. Set a trap. What kind of trap? Feed Ava false information, something significant that would only come from you, then wait to see where it goes. It was so simple it might actually work. I felt the first flicker of hope since this nightmare began. I need to think about this, I said, standing up. Thank you, Ezekiel. He nodded once, already turning back to his phone. Be careful who you trust, Mackenzie. Outside, I checked my messages. 3 missed calls from Ava. Nothing from Diego. I walked aimlessly for a while, trying to process this new betrayal. Ava, who'd held my hair back when I got food poisoning at the company retreat. Ava, who'd helped me pick out the dress for my first date with Diego. Ava, who'd apparently been sabotaging me all along. My phone rang again. Ava. This time, I answered. Where are you? She asked. I've been worried sick. The concern in her voice sounded so genuine it made my stomach turn. Just needed some air, I said, keeping my tone neutral. It's been a rough morning. I bet. Everyone's talking about your meeting with Flynn. She paused. Did he fire you? Was that hope I heard in her voice? No, paid leave while they investigate. I took a deep breath. Actually, can you meet me after work? I need to talk to you about something important. Of course. Anything you need. There's this new project Flynn mentioned before. Everything happened. Something big with the Singapore office. The lie came surprisingly easily. I think it might be my way back in. Singapore? He never mentioned that in the executive briefings. It's still confidential. I'll tell you more tonight. I ended the call and leaned against a building, suddenly exhausted. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait. My phone buzzed with a text from Diego. I'm coming by to get more of my things. Will you be home later? No. How are you? No, let's talk. Just logistics for our unraveling life. I typed back, yes. Please let me explain everything. His response came quickly. There's nothing to explain. London showed me more messages today. Things you couldn't possibly know unless you were involved with Flynn. London again. Always London. Something clicked in my mind. I'd only met London twice at company events, but both times she'd been glued to Freya's side. They were supposedly old friends, but what if there was more to it? What if London wasn't just Freya's messenger, but her partner in this setup? I pulled up London's Instagram profile, scrolling through months of posts. There, a photo from 6 months ago. London and Freya at a tech conference, arms around each other. The caption, "Working with my favorite person, your power couple, so behind the scenes, working together?" Freya didn't work. She was a socialite, a charity board member, unless this was her work. Unless destroying me was just their latest project. I took a screenshot and sent it to Ezekiel with a question. What if they've done this before? His response was immediate. Already looking into it. Meet tomorrow, same place. I think you're on to something. For the first time since seeing that dating profile, I felt a surge of something other than despair. Something that felt dangerously like the desire for revenge. Diego was already packing when I got home. The sight of his suitcase open on our bed, the bed we'd picked out together at that overpriced furniture store, arguing playfully about firm versus soft mattresses, made my chest ache. "You're really leaving," I said from the doorway. He didn't look up. "I told you I was coming for my things." "Diego, please, just listen to me for 5 minutes." His hand stilled on a folded sweater. "What's left to say? I've seen the messages, Mackenzie. I've seen the pictures." "Pictures?" My blood went cold. "What pictures?" He finally looked at me, his expression a mixture of hurt and disgust. "Don't pretend you don't know. London showed me everything. London is lying. She and Freya are setting me up." I stepped into the room. Think about it. Why would this woman you've met maybe twice suddenly contact you with all this evidence? Doesn't that seem suspicious? Diego ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart hurt. "You know what seems suspicious? You working late every night for months. You being secretive about your meetings with Flynn. You deleting texts when I walk into the room. What? I've never deleted texts around you. I've seen you do it, Mackenzie. Multiple times." I racked my brain, trying to understand what he'd seen. Then it hit me. The texts from my mother about her health issues, the ones I didn't want to worry him with. I'd been deleting those because they stressed me out, not because I was hiding an affair. That wasn't... I started, but Diego cut me off. "Save it. I'm done with the lies." He zipped the suitcase closed with finality. "I just need to know one thing. Was it worth it? Throwing away 3 years for a promotion?" The injustice of it burned in my throat. "I didn't throw away anything. I'm being framed, and you're too stubborn to even consider that possibility." "Right. Everyone's conspiring against you." He lifted the suitcase off the bed. "Your boss's wife, her friend, probably the whole office. Everyone except Perfect Mackenzie." "Not everyone," I said quietly. "Just Freya, London, and apparently Ava." Something in my tone must have gotten through to him because he paused at the door. "Ava? Your friend Ava? She's been feeding them information about me. Private things I told her in confidence." Saying it out loud made it real in a way that hurt all over again. Diego's expression softened slightly. "How do you know that?" "Ezekiel from accounting showed me emails. She's after the same promotion I am." He set the suitcase down, conflict visible on his face. "That doesn't explain the pictures, Mac." "What pictures, Diego? Please, just show me." After a moment's hesitation, he pulled out his phone and opened his messages. "London sent these yesterday." I took the phone, my hands trembling. The first image showed me entering what looked like a hotel, Flynn's hand on the small of my back. The second showed us in what appeared to be a restaurant, leaning close in conversation. "These are from the executive retreat in Chicago 2 months ago," I said, relief washing over me. "The whole team was there. That hotel is the conference center where we had meetings all day. And this restaurant? It was a team dinner. Ava was sitting right across from us." I scrolled to the third photo and froze. It showed Flynn and me embracing in what looked like an intimate moment. "This isn't what it looks like," I said quickly. This was when Flynn told me my presentation had secured the Harrison account. It was a congratulatory hug, nothing more. Diego took the phone back, his expression unreadable. "Maybe. Or maybe that's just how you've justified it to yourself." "What does that mean?" "It means maybe you didn't physically cheat, but emotionally. The way you talk about Flynn, the way your face lights up when he calls or texts. That's not normal for just a boss, Mackenzie. His words hit me like a slap. Had I been too invested in Flynn's approval? Had my ambition blinded me to how it looked to others? To Diego? I admire him professionally, I said carefully. That's all it's ever been. Diego picked up his suitcase again. I need time to think. I'm staying at Jason's for a while. Will you at least consider that I'm telling the truth about being set up? He paused at the door. I'll look into London, see if anything about her story doesn't add up. It wasn't forgiveness or even belief, but it was something. Thank you. After he left, I sat on the edge of our bed, emotionally drained but more determined than ever. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for anything I could find on London Gibson. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava. Still meeting tonight? I'm worried about you. I typed back, yes, 7 p.m. at Riverside Bar. Her response came quickly. Perfect. We'll figure this out together, I promise. I set my phone down, a bitter taste in my mouth. My best friend, my boyfriend, my career. They'd taken almost everything from me. Almost. 2 hours of digging later, I had something. London Gibson had worked at 3 different companies in the past 5 years. At each one, a female employee had been fired for inappropriate conduct with a superior. Conduct documented through dating apps and private messages. I was calling Ezekiel when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I hoped it might be Diego coming back. Instead, I found Flynn standing in my hallway looking uncomfortable. Can I come in? He asked. There's something you need to know. I stepped aside wordlessly, my heart pounding. Flynn had never been to my apartment before. He declined my offer of a drink and got straight to the point. HR completed their initial review of the messages allegedly sent from your accounts. And? I held my breath. The technical team confirmed they were sent from an IP address matching your home network. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. I never sent those messages. Flynn's expression was grave. The evidence suggests otherwise, Mackenzie. Unless someone else has been using your home internet. A cold realization washed over me. Someone else had been in my apartment. Someone with access. Diego, I whispered. Diego has been here every night. Flynn raised an eyebrow. You think your boyfriend is framing you for having an affair with me? Why would he do that? Not Diego, I said, my mind racing. Someone else. Someone who's been here when I wasn't. I thought about all the times Ava had stopped by to water my plants when Diego and I were out of town. How she had a spare key for emergencies. How she wanted my promotion. Flynn was watching me closely. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss next steps. If you have any evidence that someone else is behind this, now's the time. Tomorrow? I echoed. That's not enough time. It's all I could get you. He moved toward the door, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I want to believe you, Mackenzie. After he left, I checked the time. 6:30 p.m., 30 minutes until I was supposed to meet Ava. I texted Ezekiel. Need to move faster. They're using my home network to frame me. Board meeting tomorrow. His response was immediate. Don't confront Ava yet. We need more proof. I'm working on something big. But I was done waiting. Done being reactive. If Ava wanted to play games, I'd show her I could play too. I grabbed my keys and headed out. A new plan forming. Tonight, I'd get my so-called friend to reveal her true colors, and I'd make sure I had proof when she did. Riverside Bar hummed with after-work energy. Clinking glasses, bursts of laughter, the low murmur of conversations meant to stay private. I arrived early and chose a corner table with my back to the wall, where I could see the entrance. The server brought me a gin and tonic I had no intention of drinking. I placed my phone face up on the table, the voice recorder app running. Not admissible in court, maybe, but enough to convince Flynn and HR of the truth. Ava arrived at 7:05, scanning the room with a concerned expression that looked so genuine it made my stomach turn. 3 years of friendship, and I'd never once suspected she was capable of this level of betrayal. There you are, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. God, you look terrible. Thanks, I said dryly. It's been a rough couple of days. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I can't believe they put you on leave. The whole office is talking about it. I bet they are, I thought, but kept my expression neutral. Flynn came to my apartment today. Apparently, the messages to him came from my home network. Ava's eyes widened. That's impossible. Unless... She hesitated. Unless what? Unless someone has been using your Wi-Fi? A neighbor, maybe? I took a calculated risk. Or someone with a key to my apartment. Something flickered across her face. Alarm, quickly masked. Who has keys besides you and Diego? Just you, I said, watching her carefully. For plant watering emergencies, remember? She laughed, but it sounded forced. Are you seriously suggesting I snuck into your apartment to send dirty messages to Flynn from your network? That's insane, Mac. Is it? Because someone did exactly that. Ava took a long sip of her drink, her eyes never leaving mine. Look, I know you're desperate for an explanation, but this conspiracy theory is a stretch. Even for you. Even for me? I repeated. What does that mean? She sighed, setting down her glass. It means you've always had a flair for drama. Remember when you thought the creative team was stealing your ideas? Or when you were convinced Flynn was going to fire you for that typo in the quarterly report? That's different. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're creating elaborate explanations instead of facing facts. What facts? I leaned forward. The fact that someone created a fake dating profile with my pictures? The fact that someone sent messages from my home network when I wasn't home? The fact that you've been obsessed with Flynn since he started mentoring you, she countered. The fact that you talk about him constantly, cancel plans to work late with him, light up like a Christmas tree whenever he texts you. Her words echoed Diego's so closely it felt rehearsed. Had they been talking behind my back? I'm ambitious, I said carefully. That doesn't mean I'm sleeping with my boss. No one's saying you are, but maybe there's a line between ambition and obsession that you've been blurring. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the plan. I needed her to incriminate herself, not derail me with psychological warfare. You know what? Maybe you're right. I slumped slightly, letting defeat creep into my voice. Maybe I have been too focused on impressing Flynn. Ava's posture relaxed, sensing victory. It happens, especially with mentor relationships. The Singapore project was going to be my big break. I continued, laying the bait. Flynn said it could fast-track me to the executive team. Interest flashed in her eyes. You mentioned that earlier. What exactly is this project? A new regional headquarters. Flynn wants someone to relocate there for 6 months to get it running. He was considering me before all this. 6 months in Singapore? Ava leaned forward. That's a huge opportunity. It would have been. I sighed dramatically. Now it'll probably go to someone else. Did Flynn mention any other candidates? And there it was. The real Ava, hungry for advantage, calculating her next move. He mentioned a short list. I don't remember everyone on it. Was I on it? She asked, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. I hesitated just long enough to make her squirm. I think so, near the bottom. Her smile tightened. Well, maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe this is the universe course correcting. What's that supposed to mean? Just that maybe the position should go to someone who's earned it through hard work, not through other means. The implication hung in the air between us. I felt a surge of anger so intense my vision blurred at the edges. You think I slept my way to the top of that list? Ava shrugged. I'm just saying the evidence doesn't look good. Those messages, the dating profile, the late nights, where there's smoke. There's a fire, I finished. Or someone with a match. Her expression hardened. Careful, Mackenzie. Accusations like that can damage relationships. Permanently. Is that a threat? It's advice, from a friend who cares about you. She glanced at her watch. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. With the board, I thought. About me. One more thing, I said as she gathered her purse. How well do you know London? Ava froze for a split second, just long enough to confirm my suspicions. Flynn's wife's friend? I've met her a few times at company events. Why? Just curious. She seems to be at the center of all this, sending screenshots to Diego, to you, to Freya. Maybe she's just being a good friend to Freya. Ava stood up. Get some rest, Mac. You look like you need it. As she walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Ezekiel. Don't go home. Your apartment isn't secure. Meet me at the office now, bringing London's laptop. You need to see this. I stared at the message, adrenaline surging through me. How had Ezekiel gotten London's laptop? And what had he found? I threw cash on the table and headed for the door, only to stop short at the sight of Ava outside, huddled in intense conversation with someone in a parked car. London. I ducked back inside and exited through the kitchen, heart pounding. Whatever game they were playing, it was bigger and more coordinated than I'd imagined. And tomorrow, the board would decide my fate based on evidence planted by people I'd trusted, unless I could stop them tonight. The office building was eerily quiet after hours, emergency lights casting long shadows across the lobby. The security guard nodded as I badged in. He knew me from all my late nights. If only those extra hours had bought me some loyalty when it mattered. I took the elevator to our floor, my reflection in the polished doors looking haggard and unfamiliar. When had I last slept properly? Eaten something that wasn't coffee or anxiety? Ezekiel was waiting in the conference room, his laptop open, a sleek MacBook beside it that I assumed was London's. How did you get her computer? I asked without preamble. She left it in her car. I borrowed it. His expression remained neutral, as if breaking into cars was a normal Tuesday activity. You stole it? I'm returning it tomorrow, but first... He turned the screen toward me. You need to see what they've been doing. The screen showed a folder labeled Projects, containing subfolders with women's names. My stomach dropped when I saw my own name among them. What is this? Evidence. Ezekiel opened my folder. Inside were all the fake dating profile screenshots, the manufactured conversations with Flynn, photos of me from social media, and a document titled MackenziePlan.docx. My hands shook as I opened it. The document outlined a detailed strategy for discrediting me professionally and personally, with a timeline stretching back 3 months. Every move had been calculated. When to plant seeds of doubt with Diego, when to approach Flynn with concerns, when to escalate to HR. I couldn't find words strong enough. Premeditated character assassination, Ezekiel supplied. And you're not the first. He clicked back to the main folder and opened another name. Vanessa. Similar contents. Different woman. Then Julia. Then Rebecca. 5 women in total, he said quietly. All rising stars in their companies. All accused of inappropriate relationships with male superiors. All discredited and fired. But why? What did they get out of this? Ezekiel pulled up a spreadsheet. Money. After each woman is removed, London's consulting firm is hired to repair the company culture and implement anti-harassment training. 6-figure contracts every time. And Freya? Silent partner. She provides access to high-level executives through her social connections. They split the profits. What about Ava? Promised the promotion you were in line for, plus a finder's fee for identifying you as a target. The betrayal burned fresh. I'd helped Ava practice for her interviews, celebrated her successes, held her hand through breakups. And all along, she'd been plotting my downfall. We need to take this to Flynn, I said, reaching for my phone. Ezekiel caught my wrist. Think, Mackenzie. Flynn's married to Freya. Who do you think he'll believe? He'll believe evidence, hard proof. Stolen evidence that would be inadmissible in any legal proceeding? That we obtained by breaking into someone's car? He was right, and I knew it. We couldn't use this directly without implicating ourselves. Then what's the point of showing me? I asked, frustration building. Why bring me here if we can't use any of this? Because now you know what you're up against. And he turned back to his own laptop. Because I found something else. Something we can use. He showed me an email chain between London and a woman named Vanessa, one of their previous targets. Vanessa recorded a conversation with London last year, threatening to expose their scheme. London paid her off, $200,000 to stay quiet and sign an NDA. So Vanessa knows everything? Can we contact her? Already did. Ezekiel looked almost proud. She's willing to talk, but only in person. She's scared of legal repercussions from breaking the NDA. Hope flickered, then faltered. The board meets tomorrow morning. There's no time to wait. She lives in Boston. If we leave now, we can drive there, meet her at 6 a.m. and be back for your 10 a.m. board meeting. We? I echoed. I'm already involved. He shrugged. Might as well see it through. I studied him, this quiet man from accounting who'd put himself at risk for someone he barely knew. Why are you helping me, really? Something shifted in his expression, a crack in his usual composure. I told you about my sister. What I didn't tell you is that she killed herself 6 months after being fired. The shame, the isolation, it was too much. The weight of his words hung between us. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart and be ready to fight. He closed both laptops. We should go now if we want to make it to Boston by morning. As we headed toward the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from Diego. We need to talk. Where are you? I hesitated, then typed, Can't talk now. Something important came up. I'll explain everything tomorrow. His response was immediate. There might not be a tomorrow for us if you keep avoiding this conversation. The words stung, but I didn't have time for emotional negotiations. Not when my entire future hung in the balance. I'm fighting for the truth, Diego. Either trust me on that, or don't. I turned my phone to silent as we reached the parking garage. Ezekiel's car was small and meticulously clean, just like him. Ready? He asked, keys in hand. I nodded, pushing thoughts of Diego aside. Let's go get our witness. As we pulled out of the garage, I spotted a familiar car parked across the street. Ava's red Prius. She was watching the building, probably waiting to see if I'd show up after our meeting. Duck down, I told Ezekiel. We're being watched. He complied without question, accelerating past her car before she could spot us. She'll know we were here, I said once we were clear. Security keeps logs of who badges in after hours. Then we better make this trip count, Ezekiel replied grimly. Because tomorrow it's all or nothing. I leaned back against the headrest, exhaustion warring with determination. 4 hours to Boston, 2 hours with Vanessa, 4 hours back. Then the board meeting that would either salvage my career or end it permanently. No pressure. The boardroom felt like a courtroom as I walked in. 12 pairs of eyes tracking my entrance, expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Flynn sat at the head of the table, Freya beside him, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Ava was there too, seated among the executives like she belonged. I was 10 minutes early, but they were all already waiting. An ambush then. Mackenzie, Flynn said, his voice carefully neutral. Thank you for joining us. I took the only empty seat directly across from Freya. Her smile was razor-thin, victorious. She thought this was over. Before we begin, Flynn continued, I want to clarify that this is not a formal disciplinary hearing. We're here to discuss the situation and determine next steps. Translation. We've already decided you're guilty. We're just debating the punishment. I appreciate that, I said, keeping my voice steady. And I appreciate the opportunity to present my side. Freya's smile faltered slightly. She hadn't expected composure. She'd expected desperation. Flynn nodded to HR Director Janet, who cleared her throat. We have evidence of inappropriate communications between you and Flynn spanning approximately 3 months. These communications violate company policy regarding workplace relationships, particularly between managers and direct reports. I understand the seriousness of these allegations, I said, but I did not send those messages. I did not create that dating profile. I am being framed. A ripple of uncomfortable glances around the table. No one wanted to hear this. That's a serious accusation, Janet said. Do you have evidence to support it? I opened my bag and removed a sealed envelope. I do. The drive to Boston had been a blur of caffeine and anxiety, but Vanessa had been everything we'd hoped for. Articulate, credible, and furious at what had been done to her. She'd provided a sworn statement detailing London and Freya's scheme, along with copies of bank statements showing the hush money payment. What I have here is testimony from another victim of this same scam, I said, sliding the envelope toward Janet. Vanessa Morris was systematically discredited and fired from Apex Solutions last year, using the exact same playbook being used against me. Janet opened the envelope, scanning the contents with increasing alarm. Flynn leaned forward, his expression unreadable. This is a serious allegation, he repeated, reaching for the documents. It gets worse, I said, my heart pounding but my voice steady. The people behind this scam are London Gibson and... I met Freya's eyes directly. Your wife. The room went silent. Freya's face drained of color, then flushed with anger. This is absurd, she snapped. Flynn, are you going to allow this? Flynn was reading Vanessa's statement, his expression darkening with each page. These are very specific allegations, Freya. Bank transfers, meeting dates, recorded conversations. Fabricated, obviously, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. This woman is desperate to save her job. I'm desperate for the truth, I corrected, and I'm not the only one they've targeted. I nodded to the door, where Ezekiel stood with his laptop. He entered silently, placing it on the table. This presentation contains evidence of 5 similar cases, he explained, opening a slideshow. 5 women, 5 companies, 5 identical scenarios. Each time, the woman is fired for inappropriate conduct. Each time, London's consulting firm is hired afterward for cultural remediation. Each time, they profit. The board members leaned forward, watching as Ezekiel methodically laid out the pattern. Dates, companies, victims, payouts. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling in its consistency. Freya's composure cracked. This is a witch hunt. You have no proof I'm involved in any of this. Actually, came a voice from the doorway. She does. We all turned to see Diego standing there, holding his phone. My heart stuttered at the sight of him. Diego? Flynn frowned. This is a closed meeting. I have something you need to hear. He approached the table, placing his phone in the center. I recorded a conversation with London Gibson last night. He pressed play, and London's voice filled the room. Of course Mackenzie didn't really sleep with Flynn. That was never the point. The point was making everyone believe she did. Freya's brilliant that way. She knows perception is reality in corporate America. Freya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. That's not... He's clearly edited that recording. Diego continued the playback. Once Mackenzie's gone, we'll bring in our team to fix the toxic culture. Standard 6-figure contract, maybe more if we play up the scandal angle. Freya gets her cut, I get mine, and Little Miss Perfect gets what she deserves for trying to outshine everyone. The recording ended. Freya looked like she might be sick. I didn't believe Mackenzie at first, Diego said, looking at me with regret in his eyes. But something about London's eagerness to show me evidence felt off. So I met with her last night, pretending I wanted more information, and I recorded everything. Flynn stood slowly, his expression thunderous as he turned to his wife. Is this true? Freya's eyes darted around the room, seeking an ally and finding none. Even Ava had shrunk in her seat, suddenly fascinated by her hands. It was just business, Freya said finally, her voice cold. Nothing personal. It was extremely personal to me, I said, my voice shaking with emotion for the first time. You tried to destroy my career, my relationship, my reputation. For money. Flynn turned to Janet. I want security to escort my wife and Ms. Gibson from the building, and call legal immediately. Freya laughed, a brittle sound. You can't be serious. Flynn, it's me, your wife. Not for much longer, he said quietly. As security arrived to escort Freya out, she paused beside me. You think you've won? This isn't over. I met her gaze steadily. For you it is. The room erupted in conversation as she left. Executives processing the implications, HR scrambling to contain the damage. Flynn approached me, his expression grave. Mackenzie, I owe you an apology. A significant one. Yes, you do, I agreed, standing to meet his eyes. But right now I need some air. I walked out, past the stunned executives, past a shell-shocked Ava, into the hallway where Diego waited. For a moment we just looked at each other, all the hurt and confusion of the past days hanging between us. You recorded her? I said finally. I should have believed you from the start. His voice was rough with emotion. I'm sorry, Mac. I wasn't ready to forgive, not completely, but it was a start. Thank you for being here today. He reached for my hand, hesitantly. Where else would I be? Behind us, the boardroom door opened again as Ezekiel emerged, giving us a small nod of acknowledgement before heading back to his quiet corner of accounting. The storm had passed. The truth was out. And for the first time in days, I could breathe again.